New episode of the Brickyard podcast. We're coming to you live on a Tuesday night. It is currently 8:52 Eastern Time, and this week we are continuing our series where we preview every single NFL team's schedule. We've been going division by division all summer, and this week we're going over one of the most interesting divisions in the NFL, the AFC North. Also, going to go over some wild headlines and preseason news as well. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to be back here talking about the AFC North this week.
Yes, and to honor the AFC North, I had to honor it with this Pittsburgh Pirates logo. For the Pittsburgh fans, this goes to you. You'll be covering the Steelers and the Bengals. I'll be blessed with covering the Browns and the Ravens, so that'll be fun to see. But we'll also be covering NBA. We got Klay Thompson to the Heat. We have Russell Westbrook retiring and James Harden somehow, some way, always finding a way to secure the bag. Death, taxes, and James Harden securing a bag is almost inevitable.
Yeah, and this week I guess the past few weeks I've been looking forward. I feel like there's been a lot of good video games coming out. You know, we have like the Wolverine game coming out, very controversial because there's one mission where he's running straight and there's a ton of action going on, and apparently that's a trope in a video game, which makes it not okay to buy. And then you have everyone saying that GTA 6 just looks like GTA 5, and then it's becoming Red Dead Redemption 2. So I've kind of, as you click on posts in the algorithm, you get fed more and more things in the algorithm. And I am finding out very quickly that gaming Twitter might be one of the most miserable places on earth. Do you guys even like playing video games? Anytime someone says, I like this game, how could you like this game when this game exists and that game doesn't even compare to the one you're playing? I'm like, I think I just found the most miserable group of people on the face of the earth. I don't know if they're just fried from all of the OLED TVs just being hunched over like this. You're currently stuck with permanent nerd neck there. You killed way too many Diet Cokes. You were sitting at your computer peeing in soda bottles when you were playing World of Warcraft. But I'm like, I thought maybe people who are super into extremist politics were the most miserable place on earth. But no, check out gaming Twitter if you want to feel better about your life.
Dude, I my algorithm for like video games is like Madden 2K and then like Arc Raiders Fortnite because I had an Arc Raiders phase when it came out. And the people who are talking in those chats, you would think like everyone because they spend so much time playing these games that they love them. But no, it's the complete opposite. If it's Madden, they're like, "Oh, it's the same game every year. I'm tired of giving them $70." Yet gives them $70 every year. Fortnite, it's like every update they bitch and moan that they have a new feature. Oh, Sonic's now the new Fortnite character. I hate Fortnite for it. And then Arc Raiders, the people who are playing it are nerds. So it's like no matter what, like if it's a video game, the people who are playing the game hate it more than the people who aren't playing it. It's like it's a weird paradox in the video game world.
Yeah, especially GTA. People like, oh, it looks just like GTA 5. I'm like, yeah, so the premise of the game is you drive around and do whatever you want. Like GTA 5 and Red Dead Redemption 2 are some of the best open world games of all time, and now people are complaining. Apparently, there was this leak that said you could fly around the entire map in 20 minutes on a helicopter. This is very concerning. I'm like, how about you just chill out and wait for the game to actually come out here? Like, what are we so stressed about? I don't get it. And then you look in the comments, it's half bots and then half people who are arguing with bots, and you can clearly tell the difference. But like, I don't know if like the internet at this point is just AI bots arguing with AI bots. You mentioned the study where Twitter was 80 to potentially 90% bots, and there's the dead internet theory. But I go in any comment section now, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, X, like, these aren't real people, and if they are, I'm terrified to leave my house. If those people are out there, I'm like, they probably don't leave their house, but still, like,
The thing is that with people with GTA 6 is like everyone's gonna bitch that it's this, that it's that, but everyone's gonna buy the game. Everyone's gonna take that day off. Everyone's gonna put a bunch of time into the game, and everyone's gonna play this game for the next 10 years. So like, sure, is it gonna be the next GTA 5? Who knows? But like, they're complaining that it looks like GTA 5. Ask me this, Marcus. what is it? What is GTA 5? But not just a random guy or a random girl wandering around a city, right? That's all GTA is and the premise of things. And Red Dead Redemption is just the cowboy version of that. So they're like,
Yeah.
"Oh, this looks like GTA 5." Okay. Guess what GTA 5 looked like? GTA 4. Guess what GTA 4 looked like? the list goes on. Grand Theft Auto games look like Grand Theft Auto games because all you do is just run around and kill people. That's all you do in all the games. And with each iteration, it just looks better and better. GTA 6, the original trailer looked great. So it's going to look like a better version of GTA 5. But all of the GTA games look the same because you're doing the same thing in all the GTA games. It's like, oh, this new Madden looks just like the last Madden. It's like, yeah, because it's a fucking football game. Like, yes, of course they look the same.
And the problem is, it seems to be a lot of, oh my god, this game is different. I can't believe they would make this game different from the last game. Or, oh my god, this is the same game and they just made us buy it again. I can't believe it's the exact same game. So, do you want something new? Or do you just want the same game made over and over again? Like, I'm really confused at this point. I feel like if you're an executive at a gaming company, you're like, oh, especially like people will just, it's like any artist. You have like artists in music that are just hated, and now you have like gaming companies. So anything Ubisoft does is like, not bad for Ubisoft, I must say. I'm like, dude, grow up. It's just a game.
It's just a game. EA Sports is another game or company that's infamously trashed, which rightfully so. But like, it's the same shit. Like Madden, I don't even like the latest reviews on Madden. They're like, oh my god, it's the same game as last year. It's like, what did you say last game? That it was the same game as last year. Like that's just if you're buying a Madden game, you're not buying Madden because it reinvented the wheel this time around. You're buying it because now I get to see, Kenneth Walker on the Chiefs now. Oh great. I get to see him. Oh, Caleb Williams' stats are updated. Great. Oh, they added this new feature in franchise mode. Great. Oh, I get to do another iteration of the boys franchise where Marcus is this killer safety, and I have Tyler and all these other all my friends of mine are on this particular franchise mode. Like that's why I get Madden every year. I don't get Madden because I'm like, oh, I'm expecting them to reinvent the wheel and have the new Tecmo Bowl with Bo Jackson, made this great reinvention of the game. Like, give me a break. It's a fucking Madden game and it's a roster update. So that's what you're buying for $70. This year, I'm waiting till Christmas time. I'm gonna save the $30 and just buy it then. Because honestly, there's too much lore in the boys franchise. It's not worth it on the podcast to go in it, but a lot of depth there. I'm waiting. But yeah, gaming. Simply put, gaming internet is the most miserable place to be.
And then the other side of it is the boomer internet who will drive around with their kids and say, when I was younger, we would just get kicked out of our house and they would say, come home at dark. And then I'm like, yeah, that did happen. And then that also created a bunch of these famous serial killers that we have a bunch of movies about today from the 70s, 80s, or 90s. This glorified time where kids were just running around outside and we got to just kick them out of the house and they weren't playing video games or doing anything of that nature. They weren't wasting their time on screens. Like, what else were you doing? You had to wander around outside, and then sometimes a guy with a van would show up and then your kid just disappears. I'm like, so like you have all these people who glorify that time and then will also make fun and like talk down on people who play video games or parents who let their kids do that. But I do remember all of these movies coming out about these serial killers. We had like the Ted Bundy movie. There was the show about the guy who's the clown. I'm blanking on his name.
John Wayne Gacy.
John Wayne Gacy. Like you have all these different serial killers. And like, maybe just letting your kids roam around outside isn't the best thing to do unsupervised.
Yeah, and they're all based in the '70s, the glorified era. The other algorithm that I hate lately is I grew up and you grew up at the same time where like 2016 is now like the new hottest thing because it was 10 years ago. When 2016 was going on, everyone was talking about how we're living in hell. We have this president that was a celebrity before who was like a reality TV star and now he's now the president. They had like the Hollyweed sign bullshit. Everyone's like, oh, this is the end of the world, end times. 10 years later, they're like, oh, I wish it was 2016 again. And they're going to do the same thing with 2026 10 years from now. It's like, no, We are not living in this like we weren't living in this golden era in 2016. In 2016, everyone wishes it was 2006. 2006, they wish it was 96. Just live in the fucking present. That's it. That's all I got to do. That's my
Yeah,
piece.
that's all you have to do there. And then, as a good transition, there are also some people saying, I remember when the military would give us a weekend off so we could go purchase a something illegal that involves a woman and cash instead of giving us time off for GTA here. And, you know, for a franchise that has had so many injury issues, we've pretty much had every single player on the San Francisco 49ers roster get injured at one point. Not only that, their coach gets in a car accident and gets injured this offseason. And now, this isn't necessarily an injury, but the San Francisco's 49ers owner, Jed York. NBC Bay Area says Jed York used an alias when he sent text messages over 2 days to a woman he believed to be a prostitute before he was arrested in a sting operation in Ohio, according to a police incident report obtained on Tuesday. The report from the Mahoning Valley Human Trafficking Task Force had more than 2 pages redacted, but provided more details about what led to York's arrest and ultimately to him pleading to a no contest here. So York initially responded to an advertisement placed by the police on a known prostitution website on Saturday, according to the report, sending 2 messages that went unanswered and saying his name was Joe and that he wanted to visit the woman.
You know what's funny is that the first thing I looked up when you said that, I was like, is Jed York married?
Yep.
That was my first thought. Is like, is he married? And looks like he is legally married, although they are filing for divorce. So ultimately, this divorced dad is what he realistically is at this point, trying to find some action. Of all places, Ohio. I'm not sure how he found himself in Ohio. I'm not sure why Ohio called his name when he was looking for love, or some version of that, I guess. But you have George Kittle, who hurt his ankle. You have Brock Purdy, who's hurt multiple parts of his body. Christian McCaffrey and his knees are issues. Kyle Shanahan gets in a car accident. Now we have a bruised ego from the ownership. So everyone's getting hurt with the Niners at this point. My question with Jed York is like, okay, Robert Kraft, he did some things at a massage parlor and there was some sort of sexual activity there, but he went to Florida to do that. And that makes sense. Like Florida, a happy ending, that makes perfect sense in Florida. But this guy's like, I want to get some ass. Let me leave California to go to Ohio to get some sex. This is, in my opinion, very backwards. Because what is the neighboring state for San Francisco, but California in general? Nevada, which is home of what? Vegas and Reno. So this motherfucker could have driven to Reno and had that same adventure that he was going to have with this, I'm sure, lovely woman in Nevada. And he would have spent way less time driving to Nevada or flying to Ohio in this case. He could have probably gotten it for cheaper because it's in Reno. But instead, he goes to Ohio, and then he gets busted for human trafficking. Like, dude, what were you thinking? I don't care about what you did. Like, whatever. No judgment here. We've all done bad things. We've all done weird stuff in our lives. That's fine. But you're in the state of California, the most beautiful state, people-wise, women, men, whatever you want to call it, whatever your preference is, Jed York. No judgments here. But the state surrounding you is notorious for what you're trying to accomplish, and you decide to go to Ohio. Why did you go to Ohio? Just go to Vegas. Just go to Reno. You have so many better options. Literally in your neck of the woods, you're like, no, let me go to Ohio. That's my biggest beef with that whole thing.
So the article says that York has been in Ohio where he grew up in near Youngstown for most of the summer. So he had filed for divorce from his wife Danielle in May, according to court records. So apparently he grew up near the area and had been in Ohio for most of the summer. And then the NFL issued a statement saying the league was aware of the arrest and will review it under the personal conduct policy. It says owners are subject to possible fines or suspensions for violating policy. And then the team said the legal matter had been resolved and there would be no additional comment. So my question is, like you can find an owner, but like, what is the significance of an owner getting suspended? Like, what, he doesn't get a Super Bowl ring if they win the Super Bowl this year? Like, how do you suspend an owner? Like, he can't give them money? Suspend
Yeah.
payroll? Like, we're probably just gonna fire
Yeah.
him. And then Fred Warner said players are aware of it, but he didn't believe it would be a distraction. Yeah, it's not really a distraction. Coach is a freak. Okay. I feel like the players get it. But yeah, that is Jed York. So he gets involved in some sketchy situations, and apparently he was going to like a trailer park here. Yeah, so York took this is the craziest part about the story. York took a rental car to a mobile home park in East Palestine, Ohio, where he was given
Palestine?
East Palestine, Ohio, if you didn't need more reason to flatten it. And then he was given a fictitious lot number. He texted when he arrived at the mobile home park. He was then directed to the back main road where he was stopped by marked police units. Police found York had $160 that was seized, and they sent a text to his phone to determine it was the same one used to arrange the meeting. So they seized $160 from him, and then he went to jail and posted a $5,000 bond. So he was initially charged with engaging in prostitution, but he took a rental car to a mobile home park in East Palestine, Ohio.
There's a lot of red flags here. I've already reiterated, like, why are you in Ohio? Which he's from Ohio. Maybe that pieces it together. But I would still refute that. I would say, okay, but California, where your the team that you've owned for the last 20 years resides, you could have just gone to Reno. But that's the first thing. The second thing, you're talking to this woman or man, I don't even know, and they're like, "Meet me in East Palestine," and he goes, "Yep, let me just drive right over to a trailer park in East Palestine to find this lovely woman." Like, and for $140, which this guy is worth at minimum $1 billion. At the very least, he's worth $1 billion, and he's stripping $140 out of his pocket to find this lovely woman in East Palestine, Ohio. Like everything the more I learn about this story, the more I'm like, Jed, what is this a midlife? It is a midlife crisis. Like, let's just call it what it is. This man is going through a midlife crisis, and he thinks that the way that he breaks out of his funk is going to East Palestine. Jed York, you made a lot of mistakes today.
I need to like, I just need to show people what this guy looks like because I'm like, I need a picture of the person who would do this. So
He honestly, he kind of looks like Rafi, the Billboard icon from Phoenix.
a little bit, yeah. But
I
like
can
this
see
guy
it.
going in, I don't know. There is something a little. I feel like I do look at him and I say, weird, weird guy when I see this Jed York character who is driving to rental cars to East Palestine, Ohio, and he was only going to pay $160. I mean, you're a billionaire, Jed. And then after that, they booked him in jail for a day. He was fined like $1,150 plus the 160 seized from his car, and then he took an online course, and that's it. Like that's nothing for this guy. So he gets an embarrassing story in the news. That's about it.
And if you look at his mugshot looks like a guy that knows that he made a grave mistake. Because East Palestine, population of 4,000 people. Buddy went to Shantyville to find his mistress at this point. And his mugshot, like, this is a guy that's clearly going through a midlife crisis. His wife and him divorced. I don't know how long they were together, but I'm sure it was for a decent amount of time. And then for this, like, this is just some people in the Niners organization. Sometimes it's an ACL, sometimes it's an ankle, sometimes it's a knee, but this time it's just a bruised ego.
But that is Jed York, another injury to report on the San Francisco 49ers injury list. Now we have coach and owner checked off. So if you're a coordinator, I don't know, I'd be a little bit concerned there. And then we have some news coming out of week 2 of preseason. So we're gonna go over some quick hitters here. Um, Michael Penix was finally cleared for 11 on 11. So this quarterback competition can actually begin after being handcuffed for the bulk of the season. Falcons announced Saturday that Penix Jr. was cleared for team drills after he was kept out of a full team work as he returns from his ACL tear. The surprise is that Penix still has a shot at winning the starting gig here, mostly due to Tua's, should we put it nicely, struggles in preseason.
Yeah, we'll say struggles. I mean, great. You either can have left-handed Tua or left-handed Tua, because I'm pretty sure Michael Penix is also a lefty. So I mean, pick your poison. Do you want lefty? You want lefty Tua or lefty Tua? Because either way, you're getting the same player. So, congrats. I hope he gets back, and I hope we get to see him. Maybe he can prove us wrong, but I feel like no matter who they pick, it's going to be the same Falcons franchise that we've already predicted on.
Yeah, I agree there. With Michael Penix, I feel like him and Tua are pretty interchangeable. However, I do think Penix does give you a little bit more youth and energy because he has something to prove. Tua got his big NFL contract already. I feel that Michael Penix is still someone who needs to prove that he is a NFL quality quarterback. He can definitely make some throws. We've seen some good games from him. So I do think he has a little bit more to prove here. So I would lean towards starting Penix just because he's going to be looking for a bag, if not from the Falcons, somewhere else. And then we had Fernando Mendoza. Can he bounce back? So Mendoza got a significant welcome to the big leagues moment on Thursday against the Houston Texans. The number 1 overall pick completed 8 of 15 passing attempts for 86 yards, took an 11-yard sack, tossed a pick six in one half of work, and then it was also a pretty significant pick six here. But people are starting to, I don't know, I guess, doubt Fernando Mendoza a little bit here, where this seems kind of normal for a rookie, and I don't think the Raiders plan to play. You mentioned that Brady doesn't like starting rookie quarterbacks right away, likes them to have time, sit behind the starting quarterback, and actually learn the position first. So I don't think it's time to panic about Mendoza in week 2 of a preseason game.
Yeah, he's played 2 preseason games. He was drafted in late April, and training camp started in like early July. So he's really only been with the Raiders for a couple of months, and outside of that, it's really nothing otherwise. So I we're not going to judge him on the preseason. Zach Wilson, when he started, looked like an all-star in the preseason. When it came time to play actual football, what did Zach Wilson look like? And on the contrary, like he's not going to play for another year. So why does it matter how he plays these first 2 games of the preseason? And the Texans team also is a team that has a good defense. I understand he's facing first and like second and maybe third string players, but he's a rookie and this is expected. So to me, this is a nothing burger.
Yeah, that is a deep defense as well. Speaking of that Texans defense, the Patriots traded Kayshon Boutte to the Houston Texans, which I was a little bit surprised about. They went ahead and got a safety back and a pick from Houston, but overall thoughts on Kayshon Boutte being traded to the Texans for Houston's safety. Let me pull up his name here.
I want to say it's Jaden Reed that they draft or they got, but correct me there. But I think with all the additions they had in the offseason, they got A.J. Brown, they got Romeo Dobbs, Kyle Williams, who was a product of last year. He's another year forward. He looks promising in training camp. So it felt like Kayshon Boutte, at best, was going to be the third receiver. At worst, potentially the odd man out. So for the Texans, I feel like he's going to be a nice addition to pair along Nico Collins. They've had some injuries. I think Jaden Higgins is out for the season now. And the receiver core outside of Nico Collins is pretty weak. So I'm happy for Kayshon Boutte. And then for the Patriots, they get some back end help on their defense as well. So I think it's a win-win for both teams. Kayshon Boutte is a nice receiver, but with all the additions they've made in the offseason receiver-wise, I feel like he was going to be the odd man out.
Yeah, and they have Jalen Reed is who they traded for there. So I'm excited. Houston is deep on defense, and I do think they needed another receiver. So I do think this is a win-win trade for both teams. And Yeah, I guess if you didn't see a real fit for Kayshawn Booty, he probably just seemed like the odd man out in training camp, so they shipped him off. So I do like that they got more help on defense. And then we have a little bit of a struggle bus to continue our headlining. JJ McCarthy had a dismal outing in which he airmailed would-be scores and has put some fears into the Vikings coaching staff. Even Kevin O'Connell remains upbeat. If Kyler Murray goes down with the injury midseason, who would you trust more to keep afloat, McCarthy or Carson Wentz? And the fact that this is still even a question says a lot, the headline says here.
Yeah, and honestly, I probably believe in Carson Wentz more at this point, even though he's a few years behind. He's definitely past his prime at this point, but I just haven't liked what I've seen from J.J. McCarthy. He's definitely a guy that coming out of college was a lot more rough than the scouts had projected him to be. I still think maybe a change of scenery will help him, but you're also leaving Kevin Stefanski, who helped with Sam Darnold. I think he's going to help with Kyler down the road as well. And they also help with Kirk Cousins. So this isn't like you're in a situation like Cleveland where they've continuously had quarterback dysfunction. This is a guy that usually makes the quarterback look even better. So I do think that there is another opportunity for him, but I don't think it's with Minnesota ultimately. I think ultimately he'll be shipped off. Maybe it's this year, maybe it's next year. And how he looks, his next spot, maybe then. But what he looked like last year and how he's looked in the preseason so far, it's looking like a bust so far.
Yeah, and I think it's tough to call someone who only handed the ball off for the majority of their snaps in college a bust at this point because really his job in Michigan was to hand the ball off. So I never really had high expectations for JJ McCarthy coming out of college. However, he did have some pretty great moments last season. And I do think that JJ McCarthy still has a lot of potential, but I also see that he's a very raw talent who could definitely benefit from sitting maybe 2 or 3 years to learn behind someone like Kyler Murray or maybe on another team because I do think he has potential, but I think a full year off for him to really learn the system, not have to rush to take over because the tough thing for JJ McCarthy is it's rare you have a top draft pick at quarterback coming in to take over a team that is 14-3 and had just, probably have the best season for a wild card team maybe in NFL history, and that was with Sam Darnold. So everyone's saying, well, Sam Darnold hasn't looked this good in the NFL before. You clearly have all these weapons with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson there at tight end as well. Jordan Naylor at one point is a solid receiver for you. You still have a lot of talent there. So I do think it's a lot of pressure for a young quarterback to come in and take over a 14-3 team. And that's when you start to see him panic and press a little bit. But I also think it wouldn't be fair to say that he didn't show any signs at all of being a good quarterback because he had multiple games where he threw for 300 yards. So I do think if you give him some more time, maybe sit a year this year and maybe next year, that he could come out for one of these franchises with a great defense and be a solid NFL quarterback. I don't think he would be a top
Yeah.
5 quarterback, though.
I feel like at best he's probably in the Kirk Cousins range. Like I'm talking peak Kirk Cousins, so like 15 to 16th best quarterback. And if he's a serviceable starting quarterback, I think he'll be fine. I just don't know if he has the strongest of arms. I feel like his accuracy has been the biggest hindrance to him so far, missing a lot of those open throws. But in the right situation, in the right program, maybe he goes to a place like San Francisco, or there's always, I know they have like Mike McDaniels in LA as a backup potentially, but I do think there's an opportunity for him to be able to try again somewhere else where he'll be successful in an offensive focused situation. But ultimately for him, he is someone that is going to be more like a game manager. Doesn't necessarily have the mobility like some of the other guys in the league. So at best, he's probably an average quarterback. At worst, he's out of the league in the next 2 or 3 years.
And then last thing I want to mention here is Joe Milton's awesome. That's it.
Yes. Every year, the preseason, there's always a Joe Milton highlight, and it's always electric. Yet for some reason he never starts in the regular season. He is the preseason warrior, and God, do I wish I could see him play like a full, even like 8 to 10 games. Have him have like the Josh Dobbs, Lynn Sanity run that he had a few years ago. But for Joe Milton, what will happen, and I hope it doesn't happen for him this year. Hopefully, Dak Prescott is healthy and the Cowboys are fun again. But maybe it's this year with the Cowboys, or maybe it's whatever at one point. I want to see Joe Milton start because he's a few years into the league, and when he does play, he lights up our screen. He is like the better version of Anthony Richardson, but he can actually throw.
Yeah. He's like if Anthony Richardson could throw, and he has a cannon on him, and he's been on some teams, and he's a very raw talent. So he's been around. He's been on the Patriots. He's been on the Cowboys, and he's had time to learn here. And some of the throws that he's had, you can't say you're ever bored watching him. And when you have such an overwhelming amount of talent, CeeDee Lamb, George Pickens, arguably two top receivers, and now you have another player who you draft in preseason with Joe Milton. They already have some chemistry. You're like, okay, this Cowboys team could be really interesting if Dak Prescott goes down, and even with Dak Prescott, they'll also be really interesting as well. So that's a lot of the headlines. Only other thing to mention is Stetson Bennett came out and strengthened his case to be a backup quarterback. He had a strong outing, which pushed Ty Simpson to third string duties in that game. But Stetson Bennett kind of showing up again. Everyone was talking about Ty Simpson, but watch out. Now Stetson Bennett is in the highlights.
Hey, Ty Simpson, we're good, bro.
We're
We got
good.
Stetson Bennett now. We're good, bro. You can stick around, but we got Stetson Bennett. Yeah, I love to see it. Stetson Bennett, coming out of college, I know he had some controversy, but I would love to see him start in a regular season game. Hopefully not a Week 18 game. Just have an opportunity to show himself, but he looked good, so I hope to see him keep playing.
And then we want to go over the top dark horses according to NFL.com. And this article is written by Grant Gordon. And he has the 10 comeback player of the year candidates in his mind. Comeback players of the years for reference in the 2020s. We've had Alex Smith, who literally almost died because he broke his leg. Joe Burrow with the Cincinnati Bengals. Geno Smith, okay. Joe Flacco, pretty good one. Joe Burrow again in 2024. And then we also had Christian McCaffrey. I didn't know Burrow won this twice. Is that real?
Yeah, because the first year he got hurt, I think 6 games into his career, and then they bounced back, and that was the year they made the Super Bowl. And then he had like a career injury again a couple of years later and came back and was an MVP candidate. So he's won it twice. I feel like the second time around maybe less warranted for him, but it seems like the comeback player of the year now has been have a horrific injury or coming back from being really bad and being good again. So for him, Joe Burrow maybe winning 2 is not needed, but yeah, he's a 2-time winner.
And then at number 10, we have Tua, and he's coming back from being released by the Dolphins, and now he's responsible for a record $99.2 million in dead cap money. I'm just going to say no on this one, and he's all the way down at number 10, but I don't like when this award is just, oh, he came back from sucking. Unless you were benched, don't talk to me about, oh, he was released by the Dolphins and he's coming back with the Atlanta Falcons. And if he did win Comeback Player of the Year, he should be giving that award to Bijan Robinson because that's probably going to be why. Or Kyle Pitts.
Well, we
Can
got
Kyle
Bob
Pitts come
Gino.
back from sucking?
We got Bob Gino in the chat. He's saying it doesn't matter if Bijan Robinson is there. So Gino's on our side. I would say for him to win Comeback Player of the Year, he's going to need to throw for 4,000 yards. They're going to need to win to their division, and at that point, maybe I can understand why he's put here. But again, like he's coming back from just playing very poorly and getting cut. Like he got cut from the Dolphins because even though he had Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, he was just not good. So giving him the award, it just feels like there's other people who are maybe more deserving in that case. So I see the appeal. I understand why he's there, but I don't think he should be Comeback Player of the Year this year.
Yeah, he's coming back from not making grilled cheese at night. Whoa, okay. Yeah, that's my Comeback Player of the Year. And then we have at number 9, Fred Warner, someone who's actually coming back from an injury. He had a broken
No.
and dislocated ankle. Ouch. But yeah, he's been one of the best linebackers in the NFL here. So if he comes back, is top 10 in tackles, has a fumble recovery, I could definitely see Fred Warner being in the conversation. And that is one I agree with because he's a star player coming back from an injury, not Tua coming back from being a retard.
Yeah, I would agree. Fred Warner, horrific injury, potential Hall of Famer. If he comes back to form, absolutely comeback player of the year.
Geno Smith is coming back from being traded by the Raiders, and also he's wearing red eye contacts now. Did you see that?
Yeah, that's corny in my mind. I'm like, good for you, Gino. I love what you did in Seattle. I love to see the story. That story was great. But like winning back-to-back awards, like it's the same thing as Tua, except for maybe even more dramatic. The only thing he's coming back from is him being on the Jets again, and him coming back. Like, who is he throwing to? He's throwing to a bunch of rookies and Garrett Wilson, who consistently is hurt or underperforming. So like, no, I would actually refute Geno Smith more than Tua being on this list. I don't
Really?
think Geno Smith should be here. Yeah, because
Okay.
Tua, like, okay, he was hurt. He had a bunch of concussions. He leaves the Dolphins. He joins the Falcons. If he can go back and like make it to the win a playoff game, great. Good for Tua at that point. But you cannot tell me that Geno Smith is going to go to the Jets, compete in the division with Josh Allen and Drake May, and tell me that he is going to be the next comeback player of the year. What is he going to need to do to become the comeback? Like, the only thing he can do is if the Jets can somehow win 8 games, maybe then. But he's not going to do that with the Jets. He's not like I have more faith in Tua turning things around than Geno Smith, who is now at this point like 35 years old, because he got drafted in 2012. He was in the same draft that I believe as Andrew Luck, if I'm not mistaken. So this isn't like this is an old duck going back to his stomping grounds in New York with a worse roster than he had last year. He's going to be 36 this year. Like, no, Geno Smith is not going to be the comeback player of the year.
Damn, I feel like people forget how old he is. 36 for Geno Smith. It's pretty old. And then there's another quarterback that fits into this list of quarterbacks you've been arguing back and forth. So if Tua isn't worthy and Geno Smith isn't worthy, is Michael Penix worthy coming back from a torn ACL?
Injury, sure. I mean, Michael Penix wasn't that great before, so what is he coming back from? If anything, his career is just starting at that point. If he ends up playing really well this year and stealing the starting job from Tua and they win that division, sure. Torn ACL, whatever. But what is he coming back from? He's coming back from underperforming where he was drafted, having a horrible injury, and then coming back. I don't know. I can see it a little bit more than I can see it with Geno and maybe even Tua, but another guy that I don't have faith will win that.
Again, these
And
are
Bob
like
Geno
all
doesn't agree either.
quarterbacks. Like the only player that isn't a quarterback we've had so far has been Fred Warner, and then he's put like 3 mid quarterbacks on this list that no one should care about if they come back and throw for like 3,000 yards. Like that's fine, I guess. But we do finally have 2 skill players, and then spoiler alert, the rest are quarterbacks on the list. So 7 quarterbacks, 3 skills players, make it make sense. And Joe Burrow isn't even on this list. But we have Tank Dell coming back for Houston. Dislocated kneecap and multiple ligament tears suffered in December 2024. So he's been out a long time now. So I do think Tank Dell coming back. For me, he would probably be in my top 5 players, to be honest, coming back this year because he could be a real difference maker, especially you have him, Booty, Nico Collins. The Texans drafted a tight end that actually looks fairly solid in preseason so far. And then you have good old Reliable coming back at tight end as well for you. So I do think that Houston's offense should be better next year because God knows CJ Stroud needs as much help as he can get.
Yeah, I honestly think Tank Dell so far in this list, Fred Warner belongs there. Tank Dell belongs there because he's been gone for like a season and a half now. He's been gone for quite some time. You said he got hurt, what,
December
2024?
2024. So almost 2 years since he's played.
Yeah. So if he comes back, even if he doesn't have 1,000 yards, I feel like even if he has 700 yards, from the injury that he had, I would agree with him there.
And then Micah Parsons is on this list for a torn ACL and meniscus, but he had 12 and a half sacks through 14 games. So even if he comes back and has 14 sacks in 17 games, for me, that's not comeback player of the year material because. I mean, he came back, but he did play 14 weeks. He had 12 and a half sacks. So I think it'd be impressive, but I don't know if I would have him as my comeback player of the year necessarily because I feel like playing up until week 14, that's a pretty good amount of the season.
I would agree, and I also think like he was a defensive player of the year candidate last year. He might still be in that conversation this year, even after his injury. He's not really coming back from anything outside of his injury, so I don't think that from what some of these other players on this list, I feel like he's another guy that I would vote against for comeback player of the year.
And then Kyler Murray is coming back from playing Call of Duty.
Yeah, I had a feeling Kyler was going to be here. I'm surprised he's not higher on this list. Um, but yeah, I mean, like he struggled in Arizona. He had his highs of 2021, and since then they've been disappointing. But realistically, what he's coming back from is playing for the Cardinals for his entire career. Now he has a competent head coach and a great receiver, two great receivers, and a solid tight end. Like, really, the only thing he's surviving is living in Arizona. So I guess that alone can make him a comeback player of the year. But that 110 heat, it is a dry heat. I think he'll be just fine.
Yeah, I mean, he's also coming back from being short too. He's still stuck with that, unfortunately, but that's also something he's coming back from. And then on the next three, one of these three are not like the others. At
Oh,
number three, we have Jaden Daniels, which knee, hamstring, elbow injury. Anytime he stepped on the
wait,
field,
wait. What? Where is he ranked on this list?
number three. It's not number five. So
Oh, well, out of respect for Jaden Daniels, they have him at 3. Thank goodness. God forbid someone uses the number 5 for Jaden Daniels. Again, like, what is he coming back from? He was, if I'm not mistaken, if he wasn't the offensive rookie of the year, he was in contention for it. Last year, he had a sophomore slump. Now he's going to be the candidate for the comeback player of the year 3. I just don't see it. The story is not there. Comeback player of the year nowadays is a cinematic story. Geno Smith's comeback player of the year, like that's something that they're going to make in a Hallmark movie someday, right? Joe Flacco, same idea. Comeback player comes out of nowhere, off the couch, has this Linsanity run, makes sense. But like Jaden Daniels was one of the most exciting rookies we've probably ever seen, and his first year. Second year he has a slump, and now he's back. If he comes back to form in year 3, that's just more or less expected rather than him coming back from anything. So this one I don't agree with Jaden Daniels there.
yeah, and he was a player. He had a really good rookie season, gets absolutely annihilated by the Eagles. So for me, he's really just not that interesting of a player. He's not a player that has shown he can overcome a franchise that's clearly better than them. So if this team runs into the Rams, the Bears, even the Packers in the playoffs next year, I don't have a ton of confidence. So like for me, it's just really not that interesting. Um, yeah. And then at number two, speaking of one of these things not like the others, this player had a torn Achilles. Um, Daniel Jones.
Daniel Jones. I mean, he's with the Colts again, right? He re-signed with the Colts. So,
Yeah.
I mean, last year maybe he was comeback player of the year because he came back from being dog shit in New York. But this year, like last year, he played pretty well through the first 7 games. Everyone believed in the Colts. He gets hurt, and then the Colts completely collapse. Who would have guessed that? Who would have guessed that? We would have guessed that. But Daniel Jones, like, no, like the other quarterbacks mentioned to make even more sense than Daniel Jones. But congratulations, you came back from an Achilles tear. We still don't believe in you, Daniel Jones. That story is still not a great story at all.
Yeah. I mean, it's Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is coming back from an Achilles injury, which is okay. But Daniel Jones isn't a player you expect to come back and play really well. Even if he does come back with the Colts, they're not going to win their division. So I don't think he is comeback player of the year material. It's not headline worthy. There's no real story there. Where at number one we have Patrick Mahomes, obviously torn ACL, LCL. They're coming off a bad season, so not only is he coming off a injury. He's also fitting the other narrative where he's also coming off of playing bad as well. So I do think having Mahomes at number one is the obvious choice. And there's a player I thought was on this list that would be on there as well, but I'll mention that after you go over Mahomes.
Yeah, Mahomes. I think this is the only year that he really can be a comeback player of the year. We had Brady win comeback player of the year. Burrow's now won it twice. And given the context of everything that's happened to him the last, honestly, 2 or 3 years, then I think he would be a worthy candidate, assuming that they go back to the Chiefs that we know and love, the team that, or I guess, know and hate at this point. But going back to a 10 to 12 win team, which we predicted last week, make sure to check that out. But I think he's a worthy comeback player of the year candidate, and I think he probably should be the favorite.
Yeah, I definitely think he should be the favorite as well. Also, MVP candidate. And then there's another player on this list, and when I saw him working out, the fan in me just couldn't help but be excited for the NFL season. The thought of Aaron Donald coming back to play with Miles Garrett is unreal. He went to the Rams for a practice. He's starting to work out, and he not only isn't ruling out coming back, he's currently saying he's undecided. He went to the Rams. Obviously, this guy never stopped working out. Is going to look like he's in phenomenal shape. And the thing with it is he doesn't even have to be the number one rusher. I felt like Aaron Donald had already retired pretty young, and he was at the top of his game as well. Think DeMarcus Ware and Von Miller type of pairing, like some of the best edge rushing duos in the NFL. And now Sean McVay is saying that he has a plan for a 53-man roster with and without Aaron Donald. So they're floating this around like it's a real possibility. Do you like I think this is going to happen cuz I don't know how we would have so much publicity and so many headlines about it if it wasn't going to be a thing where if Aaron Donald is actually genuinely excited to play with Miles Garrett, I think he's going to actually come back and play with Miles Garrett maybe for a one last hurrah and to get a second Super Bowl ring. Potentially Matthew Stafford retires after that, but maybe his body just needed a break for a few years. But how, like, Aaron Donald isn't even that old at this point. What is he, 32, 34?
So he retired at 32, but he had been an All Pro every single year of his career. He was the Defensive Player of the Year 3 times. Even his last year, which he had 8 sacks and was definitely still a difference maker, still an All Pro player. I mean, you leave the NFL for 3 years and you come back, and if you can still do, if he does exactly what he did in 2023, or even if he does 75% of that, the fact that you leave the NFL for 3 years and you come back at age 35, which still in the NFL world, I know we're kind of conditioned for Brady and I guess the quarterbacks playing into their 40s, but
Von Miller's
as a
37.
defense, yeah, like
He's
Von
still
Miller's
playing.
37, still playing pretty well. Aaron Donald, he left as an All-Pro player. If he could come back, and even if he's a second-team All-Pro or better yet, a Pro Bowler, absolutely, he should 1,000% be the number one favorite. Outside of Mahomes, he should be above Mahomes, in my opinion. This would be the greatest story, and I feel like he would be a lock for comeback player of the year at that point.
Yeah, he's the same age as Khalil Mack. They're both 35 years old. So, I mean,
Khalil
and the
Mack's
fact
still an
that
effective player.
he gave his body some rest too, I think is also an advantage for him. Where maybe his body was just beat up. He was probably dealing with a lot of injuries his last year, which just made it not feel worth it to come back here. But I do think if Aaron Donald comes back and isn't even having to be their best rusher on the field, you have all that pressure taken off of you with Miles Garrett. He might even play better than he did his last year in the NFL.
100%. You got to deal with him and Miles Garrett. That's just not fair for opposing offensive lines. If he comes back, I don't even think it matters how he performs. He's going to be your comeback player of the year without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, absolutely. Especially if he just comes back, has 8 or 9 sacks alongside Miles Garrett. Rams are the number one seed, but that team is looking even scarier, as Bob Gino mentioned last week. President is a fan of that team, also a fan of the New York Giants. So we'll see. Going to be interesting. We're going to go over the college story, but I think that can wait till next week. I think now we're pretty good on time to get into the AFC North. You want to get into our AFC divisions here?
Yeah, so we have two more divisions to cover. The Norths. I'm donning the Pirates hat in honor of the AFC North. Recently spent time in Pittsburgh, also. So we're recently acclimated to the Great North Division. So this time around, we've been doing our schedule predictions. You'll be covering the Pittsburgh Steelers and the Cincinnati Bengals. I'll be covering the Ravens and the lowly Browns, as they always are. So I guess we can start here with the Steelers, which is probably the hardest team to pin down in this division. Aaron Rodgers, last hurrah. They got Michael Pittman in there as well. Still have the TJ Watts of the world floating around. When I say Pittsburgh Steelers in 2026, what's your early sentiment before we get into the schedule?
I think underrated and dark horse for this Pittsburgh Steelers team. You have a team where if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, you're not just relying on DK Metcalf next year. Last year, it seemed like you couldn't buy a number two wide receiver. You had a good tight end trio with Pat Fryermuth. Jonnu Smith has moved on, but you had Darnell Washington still there this season, but you just couldn't necessarily figure out another receiver to break the game open. So you struggled to produce any offense at all against, the Houston Texans when you played them in the wild card game. However, this year you add Michael Pittman, and then on defense you also get Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker, and Darnell Savage. So you get a lot of help in your secondary there. So I think defensively, this team has a little bit more youth now. If you had a good draft, I think they can be a little bit better. And this is the first year without Mike Tomlin. You have Mike McCarthy coming back, and he's going to be coaching with Aaron Rodgers. Seems like it's Aaron Rodgers' last year. So I do think that the Steelers will be a good team this year. They were a playoff team last year, and I think they're going to be in that same 8 to 10 win bubble. But I could even see them maybe sneaking in 11 wins this season at most. So I definitely think they're going to be better than what people think.
Yeah. So we will get into it here. So let's start with just a few Sundays from now. They start their 1 o'clock slate against potentially two comeback player of the year candidates, the Falcons.
Yeah, and they have the Atlanta Falcons, and I think that's a good week one. I know Aaron Rodgers typically doesn't come out and have a great week one here, but it's two head coaches in this game where it's their first time coaching with the team, where you have Kevin Stefanski with the Falcons, then Mike McCarthy, new head coach for the Steelers. I think at this point, though, yeah, I'm actually going to lean Atlanta for this one. I think with Mike McCarthy, the Steelers' offense might be a little bit clunky. Just being able to lean on Bijan Robinson, I don't know. This one just instinctually feels like a Falcons win.
I will say recently, in the last 5 years, he has definitely struggled in week one. I'm pulling up his records here. So his Jets tenure, he lost pretty easily because of that, torn Achilles there. He did beat the Jets in week one last year, but other than that, he struggled against the Niners. He struggled against the Vikings, struggled against the Saints. Over the last 4 years, he is 2-5. So he has definitely struggled there. So losing in week one, that makes sense, I would say. And then they go and take their talents to Foxborough and take on the Patriots in week two.
Yeah, and the Patriots, that time they played the Steelers, that was one of the roughest games for Drake May. Wasn't really a pretty one there. So I do think the Patriots should handle business against Pittsburgh.
All right, so they fall to 0-2. Their schedule is going to start to take a bit of a break after week 3 when they take on the Bengals.
Yeah, and it's the Bengals in September, so I think the Steelers win that game. Bengals don't know the football season has started yet.
They don't start until our birthdays every year. But luckily for them, so, started off 0-2. They beat the Bengals in September. And then October turns over and they have Thursday Night Football against their whipping boy, the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah, and I think they, shockingly, in a turn of events, beat the Cleveland Browns.
Death taxes and the Steelers beating the Browns. That's pretty inevitable there. Week 5, they take on comeback player of the year Daniel Jones in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, I say they beat the Colts. Wasn't that one of the teams last year we looked at, and the Colts were on a hot streak, and then Daniel Jones had like his first terrible game against the Steelers, and take a look at that, like, whoa, okay, if you're gonna look this bad against this Steelers team and defense who has looked a little bit older and beat up, I don't know.
I can't trust the Colts, and I never will. It does get a little bit tougher. They go to Tampa Bay to take on Baker and the Bake Show.
And I think at this point in the season, I will take them to beat the Bucks. I think they're gonna go. I think they will split with the. I think they'll split with the South here, so I'll take them to beat the Bucks. And then was that week 6 or 7?
That is week 6.
Okay.
Entering into the funny number 6, 7. Week 7, they take on the Shuck Boys in New Orleans, the New Orleans Saints, at 9:30. So
And I
this is
said
an
they'll
international
split with
game.
that division, so I think they will lose to the Saints. They've been on a little bit of a win streak, so I think they come back down to earth. And then now they're 4-3, which is typical Steelers, what you
And
expect.
this game is also in Paris as well, which Aaron Rodgers, I feel like he's a guy that is going to enjoy the city there, so maybe not fresh there. So I think, especially international games, they're weird. I can see that going that way. But it's okay because the very next week they get to face the Browns for the second time.
Is this off a bye
This is not off of a bye, but they'll have a bye week after Cleveland.
after Cleveland? Yeah, I still think they'll beat the Browns. It's interesting. I think Roger Goodell said that there's gonna be an international team, and I noticed a lot of the international games. Usually, you have your bye after that, and then this year, most of the teams don't have a bye after the international game. So I wonder if they're trying to collect data to see how teams are playing after coming back from an international game with no bye after it. Because didn't you notice that when we were previewing a lot of the other schedules? Now Goodell is saying,
Yeah.
"Oh, we're gonna have an international team." Like, maybe the NFL is just preparing. Okay, how are teams gonna react without a week of rest after playing in London, Ireland, or wherever?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, we've previewed pretty much every division now, and pretty much every international game. There's a following game that follows it. So I definitely think, especially, I don't know when the international game comes or when that team officially joins the NFL. My guess is it's within the next 10 years. So if they can gather data over the next 10 years and determine, like, okay, turns out that that jet lag isn't that bad and it isn't a disadvantage to that team, then I think that they move forward with it. So I would agree there. But luckily for them, they face the Browns, who are a perpetual mess.
Right, so they're five
But
and three.
so they're now 5-3. Unfortunately, they get a bye week, so they win that obviously. But then they have to go to Cincinnati. Bad news though is that this is now in November.
Yeah, and they lose that one. Go to 5-4.
So they're now 5-4. And then their schedule does get a little bit tougher down the stretch here. They go from Cincinnati to Philadelphia to take on the Eagles.
Ooh, that's a tough one. I do think Pittsburgh will win that one. I have a feeling they'll come out on top. That's a weird part of the season for both teams. So I do think Philadelphia, they won't necessarily be unbeatable. Saquon Barkley, we don't know what we're gonna get from him this year, so I think Pittsburgh can pull that out.
All right. And then Black Friday. This is Denver in Pittsburgh. This is in Pittsburgh for Black
And I
Friday.
think Denver wins that one.
All right. And this is on short rest, too. They only have 5 games between them, or 5 days between them. They play on Sunday and then they play on Friday. That's a tough swing for them. And then after a mini bye, they take on the Texans in December. And this is in Pittsburgh. So it could be a snow game potentially.
Yeah, and I think they fall to the Texans in that game and move to 6-6. So kind of back to the Steelers we expected at this point.
Yeah. And then at this point, Monday Night Football, they take on the Jaguars in Jacksonville.
And I think they should win that one. And then that gives, but they're 7-6 now. See, I'm not trying to do 6-7 on purpose. If I was doing it on purpose, I would take them to lose to the Jaguars. But no, I went against that, and they are 7-6 in this game.
And luckily for us, we beat the 6-7 allegations this time around. Will we be as lucky with the Bengals? We shall see. But that being said, after Jacksonville, they now take on the Ravens for the first time in Pittsburgh.
In Pittsburgh, I feel like they have split with the Ravens the majority of the time, and Pittsburgh typically wins the second matchup, so I do think they fall to 7-7 and lose this one.
All right. And then two easy games before week 18, but to be determined flex game, but they are taking on the Panthers week 16.
And I had them splitting with the South, so I will take them to beat the Panthers and go back above 500. Wild card, still in the mix.
All right. And then they take on the Titans in Tennessee in January.
That's a funny joke. I heard Titans, and then yeah, they moved to 9-7, beat Tennessee.
All right. And then week 18, they take on the Ravens. This is in Baltimore, potentially for the division, potentially for a playoff spot. So there could be some playoff implications. Probably going to see Aaron Rodgers play this game.
Yeah, and I had them splitting with the Ravens, and the Ravens won the first time, so I take the Steelers to win that game and go 10-7. And I think I picked a pretty fair schedule. I picked them to lose some games they probably shouldn't, win some toss-up games here, but overall, I feel pretty confident with that. Looking back, maybe I would pick them to go 9-8 with this schedule, but I think 10-7 is fair with the addition of Michael Pittman, Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker, and all of those guys, and Darnell Savage.
I think my biggest concern with the Steelers is that they're an older team. So I feel like, especially when they have that gauntlet where it's Cincinnati, Philly, Denver, Houston, Jacksonville, Baltimore, all in a row. If injuries pile up, those could be a potential where you can see a 1-5 schedule right there. But yet again, they face Cleveland twice. They face Carolina. They face Tennessee. There's early wins in there, so I feel like they might start a little bit hotter and then maybe fizzle out at the end of the season potentially. But I think 10-7 is fair. 9-7. I would say 9-8, 10-7 is. I feel like that's a pretty easy prediction for the Steelers historically.
Yeah, I would say going 5-3 and then finishing 10-7 is pretty fair for this team. Especially they did get a little better, and then you finally have a fresh face in the building with Mike McCarthy. It's also Aaron Rodgers' last year here, so I do think I like the vibes with this team so far in preseason. Like it seems like this team is having fun.
100%. And Vegas has them as 8.5 wins. So you have
Okay.
them over in this case. And it looks like there's more people voting on the under in this case. So people are less optimistic for them at this point. Just probably given Aaron Rodgers last year, no Mike Tomlin anymore. Vegas probably bakes that into it. So you're a little bit more optimistic on the Steelers. But I think the fact that they've been 10-7 the last 3 seasons is also a big thing, where they just are pretty consistent in that regard, and they've cleared the over the last 6 straight years. So, as far as patterns wise, it's on your side.
Yeah, and they've been good at drafting as well. So I do think that'll play a role in it. And then finally they got like Jamel Dean, Jaquan Brisker, Darnell Savage. Those are all quality NFL starters here. And then
For sure.
let's just cue this up. We can go over the Cleveland Browns next, and we had some controversy coming out of their press conference here. You have Deshaun Watson giving his thoughts on being booed.
Man, I didn't have no reaction. I think the biggest thing is, I think you guys know too, and I think the whole world knows. It has nothing to do about the performance. It's it's a little bit personal than that. So I think that's it's a disrespectful thing. So yeah, I mean, I'm gonna keep whatever I feel with me and my family internally on how I feel about that. And yeah, just move on. Last time I played on this field, I tore my Achilles. And that same fan base, they cheered when I got hurt. So does that have to do with, what does that have to do with anything about performance? When a person get hurt, especially for your own city, and they cheer.
So that's Deshaun Watson. And last week I said we went over a video of Booger saying that the Browns were his dark horse team, and they were talking about how that's just the sunk cost fallacy where you have to play him just because you're paying him $230 million. And Booger's like, oh, well, he had a breakdown that was similar to Peyton and Eli Manning on the Manning cast. And I said, wow, it's almost like that's your job as a quarterback to read a defense. But how much can a guy really care after you pay him $230 million guaranteed? And what you see in this video is a guy that is there for business and he's there to collect his paycheck, but he doesn't seem like he has a good relationship with the fans. And so this is a player in turn where he doesn't really have an incentive to go out there, put his body on the line anymore. Like, whatever happened with Deshaun Watson happened. He's not in jail for it right now. We need to move on, but we also need to recognize who he is as an NFL player, which is more a player that is just going to pick up a paycheck. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to only talk about how I feel about the fan base with me and my family, but they did just cheer about me being booed. But then you have the flip side, which is he seems to say, oh, well, it's just about the performance.
Yeah, no, he said it's not about the performance. I'm like, dog, here's your numbers with Houston, right? You were 100 QBR in your time in Houston. You were averaging about 36 touchdowns per year, and you were a Pro Bowler every year when you were with Houston. 2 years removed after some allegations settled out of court occurred. Since then, with the Browns, you are 9-10, 19 touchdowns, 12 picks. Your QBR has dropped by 25 points, which is substantial in the NFL. The difference between 105 QBR and 80 is pretty remarkable. And his accuracy has taken a massive decline. His mobility has taken a massive decline. He just seems like a guy that's taking a check. He also said, well, they're cheering for me because I got injured essentially. And, that's how they feel. It has nothing to do with the performance. No, the performance has to do with the fact that their ownership was dumb enough to give him a fully guaranteed contract, even though he had all of this baggage on top of him. And they can't get out of it because in his contract there's a poison pill where if they cut him this year, it's $127 million in dead cap for this team. A team that's already very thin pretty much all around the board. So they cheered for him getting hurt because, first of all, character-wise, there's some things you can pick apart, whether or not he did what was accused of him or not. There are some accusations there. Secondly, your contract is killing this franchise. The reason why they had to move on from players like Myles Garrett, Nick Chubb, and some other stars of this franchise. And then on top of that, you've been one of the worst quarterbacks in the NFL. So, is it have to do with the performance? Absolutely. Of course it's the performance. What are you talking about? It's not your performance. If this guy was playing like Deshaun Watson in Houston, they would have forgotten anything that would have happened at a potential, massage parlor in Houston, and they would have embraced him. By far, the dog pound, are you kidding me? A team that hasn't had a good quarterback ever outside of Baker Mayfield for a few seasons? No, this team would have absolutely embraced you. In fact, there were Browns fans that were cheering when they got Deshaun Watson. They're like, oh my God, we finally have a top 5 quarterback in the league. No, you don't. You have Deshaun Watson in Cleveland, who has been completely dog shit. So, no, Deshaun, I would completely disagree with you in the fact that essentially it has nothing to do with performance. No, they cheered for you because you sucked, and your contract is killing this franchise. So that is why they don't like you, Deshaun Watson, and because of your character, potentially. So, yeah, Cleveland's a mess, per usual.
Also, when he talks about the performance, let's not forget that people forgave Michael Vick for what he did. And honestly, Michael Vick, for what he did, he went to jail. He made dogs fight each other to the death, essentially, like dog fighting. Like, you're making two animals that are a man's best friend fight. The thought of that should be heartbreaking to anyone with a heart there. And people were able to move on and past that with Michael Vick because he had a good year or two with Philadelphia in some good games. So if Deshaun Watson came out with Cleveland and played well, I do think your point is correct, where the fans would have wrapped themselves. And you have to think about the conditions that brought Deshaun Watson there, where for the first time in probably 3 decades, you actually had a quarterback with some potential with Baker Mayfield, and then you got greedy, thought you could do better with Baker Mayfield, and then you wanted to take your team to the next level and then swing for the fences with Deshaun Watson, where if you just kept Baker Mayfield, you'd be in a better cap position than you're in right now. And Kevin Stefanski might still be there and have his job, but Deshaun Watson, you had to swing for him because that's how bad your franchise was. So it was a move out of desperation, but this is what happens with bad teams. Is there's a reason why it was the Cleveland Browns who went out there and acquired Deshaun Watson. Just to think that there was talks of trading potentially Lamar for this guy, and then Atlanta, like that had to all be just smoke screens to go out there and then get the Browns to go do it. But there's a reason why they were the team that went out there and acquired Deshaun Watson. It's because no one else wanted him. You think that was his first choice? And then the $230 million guaranteed, and we're supposed to expect that this guy's going to care about playing football. And now the big news is that he's the starter now over to Pro Bowl quarterback Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, Pro Bowler Shedeur Sanders, because Joe Burrow, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Drake May, the list goes on. Insert Justin Herbert, all these quarterbacks that basically said either I'm hurt and don't want to play, or I'm perfectly healthy and I don't want to play in the Pro Bowler. And that's why Shedeur Sanders got the nod. Whatever, good for Shedeur Sanders. That'll help his contract someday. But, like, the Browns are only starting Deshaun Watson because they're paying him this year $41 million to be a part of their team. And they can't get rid of him until next year when the cap hit is still going to be $86 million, which is going to be one of the largest cap hits in NFL history. And they're still going to be paying him long after he's gone, potentially. So, yeah, I mean, for the Cleveland fans, obviously they're going to boo him. I can only compare them to the teams that I've been a part, teams that I'm a fan of. But like, Red Sox fans booed Pablo Sandoval because he was fat and sucked, but he was great in San Francisco. Pablo Sandoval did not go to a massage parlor, and we didn't trade him with all of our first-round picks that they traded. I think they traded 4 first-round picks for him on top of that, and gave him the most money fully guaranteed ever. So, yeah, no, Deshaun, wake up. But yeah, Cleveland now is going to be running out there with Deshaun Watson, their number one running back, the stud that is Quinshon Judkins. No disrespect to him. And then Jerry Jeudy and 3 rookies are what are going to determine their receiver core. No more David Njoku. He is now a Thunderbolt in L.A., and then an offensive line that's been historically bad. They don't have Myles Garrett anymore. They now have Jared Verse, who is a good edge rusher, but is he Myles Garrett? Is anybody Myles Garrett? No. So this is the team that we have. And where does my thoughts on the Browns so far? I don't have any thoughts on the Browns. Oh, don't forget
instead of Coach of the Year, 2-time Coach of the Year, Kevin Stefanski, you have Todd Monken now.
Yeah, and Todd Monken comes from Baltimore, I believe. Or did he come from L.A.? I'm trying to remember.
He came from Baltimore. So, yeah, you think of the Ravens who can overcome the Chiefs. And then he also spent some time with the Georgia Bulldogs as well.
Okay. So he's coming from the Ravens, who are, ironically, the Browns that moved away and have been much more successful since. Now we have this iteration of the Cleveland Browns. So my thought is, like, how many wins do they have? Let's look at the schedule, but I don't know. This is a team that we made fun of the Cardinals, and we've made fun of some other teams. We weren't very kind to the Dolphins either, but let's look. This is going to be ugly.
All right. Opening day, they go to Trevor Banks Stadium to play the Jaguars.
And they're not winning that game.
Right?
They can't.
And then after that, they start the year on a 2-game road trip, and they go to Tampa, staying in Florida.
Not winning that game either.
Okay, so they are 0-2 now. And then their first home game is against the Carolina Panthers. Let's flip a coin and see if the Panthers won last week or not. But
still probably beats the Browns.
Right. So Bryce Young beats the Browns, and then they play the Steelers in Cleveland. I had the Steelers sweeping the Browns. Do you agree?
I think the entire division sweeps the Browns, yes.
The entire division, not one win yet. Okay, and then they go to New Jersey to play the Jets.
This is when it gets tough. Now, here's the thing: is I feel like these 4 games are not going to be pretty games for the city of Cleveland. You're going to have Deshaun Watson there, and I don't expect him to play a great performance. We might be seeing Shador Sanders in this Week 5 matchup against the Jets, and honestly, the Jets, I can put more stock in the Jets. Geno Smith is a potential comeback player of the year candidate, according to NFL.com. I'm going to take the Jets to win that game.
All right, so they're 0-5 after falling to the Jets. They go back home and play the Ravens.
They're not beating anybody in this division. I'm just going to headline it. Maybe if they face them in Week 18, maybe then. But other than that, no. I don't see them winning that game.
Potential win on the schedule. They go to Nashville to play the Titans.
I mean, at this point, they're 0-6. I think there's still more suffering for them, but if there is a game they're going to win this year, do I think they go winless? No. Let's have them beat the Tennessee Titans. And maybe they beat the Jets. Maybe they beat the Jets, but they lose to the Titans or vice versa, but they're not beating both of those teams. Not those juggernauts.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Bob Sala might have a good coaching performance, but 1-6, they get their first win. We'll take it there, and then they play the Steelers, and I had the Steelers sweeping them, so now they are 1-7.
Yep.
And then they go to New Orleans to face the Shuck.
Yeah, no way. Not with Jordan Tyson. Not with Shuck. Travis Etienne. That defense cannot contain that.
And then the week after, they host Houston. Good luck to the Browns quarterback.
Yeah, I mean, this could be Shador Sanders. This could be who else is on this depth
Dylan
chart?
Gabriel.
Let's look. Dylan Gabriel. Could be Taylon Green at that point. Could be somebody that's probably not even on that roster at this point. Could be whoever's floating around in free agency. But murder. Whoever it is, I hope they come back with their head attached.
And then they host the Raiders. So Raiders in a cold away game.
Yeah. Now I almost regret picking the Titans to lose because I feel like this is where they get their first win. But I think they do beat the Raiders at this point.
And then bad news for them. Both the times they play the Bengals is after November. So it's not even November Bengals. It's December Bengals. And they host Cincinnati at 1 o'clock on the 6th of December.
And they're not going to beat anybody in this division. So it's inevitable.
And then they host Atlanta in an interesting matchup where you could have Tua potentially playing outdoors in Cleveland in December.
Well, let's look at this. Let's just remind ourselves of what Tua's record in the cold is. Because this is in December.
Yep.
Tua is 1-7 in the cold. He's looked pretty bad. Yeah, let's give him a win here against the Falcons. I think this is a winnable game for them. December 13th.
3-10, and then they go to the Giants.
This is a winnable game, but honestly, like John Harbaugh's a better coach. We have Jackson Dart, Cam Scatteraboo. If Cam Scatteraboo isn't already concussed, I think the Giants still win that game.
All right, and then after that, they go to Baltimore.
And they beat. Oh, the Ravens beat them. I almost said that the Browns beat them. That's a funny joke.
All right, so 3-12, and then they host Indianapolis.
I mean, you could get tickets as low as $19 here. So
Really?
if you got $20 sprinkled together and you're somehow in Cleveland, Ohio on January 3rd, then maybe that's your lucky day. But yeah, no, I think the Colts might still be fighting for a playoff spot then. We don't know. They'll probably be like 7-9 at this point, so gives them hope. But yeah, I don't think they beat the Colts.
Wow. Okay, so they can't even beat the Colts. And then after that, they play Cincinnati to end the year.
And the Bengals, knowing them at this point, they're like 8-8, and they need to win this game to make the playoffs. So give me Cincinnati to beat them.
All right, and Cleveland goes an impressive 3-14, and Yeah, after losing Miles Garrett, replacing him with Jared Verse, I don't necessarily disagree with that. I know Booger said this was his sleeper team here, but
But
this
Booger's also an
just,
idiot.
yeah, this just feels like classic Cleveland Browns, where you have Deshaun Watson fighting, and then people are complaining that Shador isn't going to start, and they're treating Shador Sanders like he's this generational quarterback. What I get, he probably works hard, and he's probably a good person, but he's also a nepo baby. So why are we infatuated with Shador Sanders if it wasn't just for his last name here? And I think he can be a okay NFL player, but I think like his potential and peak is in the realm of Snoop Huntley. It's not Lamar Jackson. I think he has probably 2 or 3 good seasons he could string together, and then he's going to be bad to mediocre. But I don't think he'd be better than someone like Mac Jones. So I just don't get the infatuation with Shador Sanders, especially with him being a nepo baby. It's like no, it's nothing against him. You can't necessarily put that on him because he can't change it. But I feel like that is the reason why most people are talking about him.
I think it's a mixture of him being Deion Sanders' son, and obviously Deion Sanders is a Hall of Famer. Another part of it is they watched them at Colorado, and that was a good underdog college football story. You saw him, Travis Hunter, and a few other guys emerge, and were really great for them there. So I think part of it's the Colorado story, and then also like everyone thought he was going first overall. He ended up falling into the 5th round. So there is, even though he's a nepo baby, there is still that underdog story. He goes to a historically awful franchise in Cleveland, so I understand it. And plus, Shador himself, I think, is a likable guy. He's got a good swagger about him. But let's just remind everybody the Pro Bowl stats that he had last year: under 60% completion rating, 1,400 yards in 8 games, and his QBR was 68, 7 touchdowns, 10 picks. Like, this isn't a guy that's going to change the world for you either. Like, at best, Shador Sanders is going to be a fine quarterback, but at best, in a situation where his number one receiver is Jerry Jeudy, 2 rookies filling out the rest of that receiver room, and let's also remember Cleveland's history with drafting wide receivers as well isn't necessarily a pristine record either. So, I mean, this is like peak Cleveland mess. No matter what goes on, they had Baker Mayfield, Odell Beckham, Jarvis Landry, Nick Chubb in their prime, and now all of a sudden, just a few years removed, they have the worst contract in the history of the NFL, undisputed at this point, because I don't think even Russell Wilson deserves to be in that conversation with Deshaun Watson anymore. 3-14. And honestly, I think I was nice to them. I think 3-14 is what I can expect for them to be, but if I saw them go 1-16 or 2-15, would I be stunned? Not at all.
Yeah, and you sent me a list with Russell Wilson on it, and it was quarterbacks with 400-yard passing games in the last 5 years, and Russell Wilson was on it pretty much every year.
Dude, yeah, it was every quarter, all 32 teams last 400-yard passer. And keep in mind that, like, Russell Wilson did bounce around the league a little bit, but, like, see, he only played for 4 teams. Every single team that he played for, he threw for 400 yards. Even in Denver. He did it in Denver too, which is surprising because that Denver era was not the prettiest for them. But he did it for the Giants. He did it for the Steelers. He did it for the Seahawks. Like, it's impressive there. But, yeah, like, if we're going to get – and I know that we're getting off topic saying this, but, like, Deshaun Watson's contract and Russell Wilson's contract – first of all, one of them wasn't accused 36 times by a source of women. The other one was like at that point, like a pretty lock for a Hall of Fame career. Him going to Denver, breaking up with Seattle after 10 years, them making a big move and signing him to this large contract made a lot of sense for Denver. And they hired Nathaniel Hackett, who's retarded. Sorry. So part of it wasn't all on him. Nathaniel Hackett couldn't run a fucking treadmill if he tried. So, like,
because they thought they were
it wasn't all on
Rodgers. That's why they hired him.
They thought They thought they were getting Aaron Rodgers, and they didn't get Aaron Rodgers. And then he struggled his first year. Second year, he wasn't terrible, but he wasn't the Russell Wilson that we loved 10 years ago. And Sean Payton had some sort of dirt on him that he didn't like him for whatever reason. So that failed. But then he bounced around in Pittsburgh, played in New York, and definitely wasn't the Russ that we loved back in Seattle. But I could talk myself into them buying, taking the swing for Russell Wilson at the time. The Deshaun Watson saga in Cleveland, first, the guaranteed contract, the scandals, everything else, you're negotiating with yourself. Like, the only team dumb enough to do that is the Cleveland Browns. And I'm not even talking about it in football. I'm talking about in baseball. I'm talking about in hockey. I'm talking about in basketball. I'm talking about in fucking cricket. The only team that could have possibly done something this stupid is the Cleveland Browns. And everything that they've done, they continue every year to bury their own ditch every single year, and each year it gets deeper and deeper. And their solution is, you know what we need? We need a new shovel to keep digging every single year. So this team, everything that happens to Cleveland, I used to be very optimistic and hopeful for the future for them. But then every year they do something this stupid. So they deserve it, frankly. I don't think the city of Cleveland deserves it. Great city from what I saw, but the Cleveland Browns, everything that happens to them, they deserve, frankly.
Yeah, the funniest part was Baltimore jumping in on the trade talks and saying they were mulling over giving up Lamar Jackson for Deshaun Watson, and it was probably just to have the Browns up their offer. If you're Cleveland and you're Jimmy Haslam and you hear the Baltimore Ravens are willing to part ways with Lamar Jackson, no shit, he must still be really good. We have to trade for him now, give them a ton of first round picks and a fully guaranteed contract because we don't want Baltimore to get him, right? And then Baltimore's just sitting there laughing their asses off. I knew they would take the bait.
The thing that's even more like hysterical about the Cleveland Browns is the fact that they were really good up until the 80s. And then they have an owner that hates the city of Cleveland. They're like, you know what? Fuck Cleveland. We're moving to Baltimore to become the Ravens. This happens in 96, and they win the Super Bowl in 2000. Cleveland, for context, has never won a Super Bowl. So realistically, in an alternate timeline, that team, the Ravens, never existed, and the Cleveland Browns win 2 Super Bowls. The historical legend of Ray Lewis is now a Cleveland Brown. Terrell Suggs is a Cleveland Brown. And Ed Reed, Tom Brady, when he's talking about the teams that he hated to face the most, he's not talking about the Ravens. He's talking about the Browns in an alternate timeline. But instead, they moved to Baltimore, and then Art Monken ends up selling the team. And then Cleveland, because everyone bitched and moaned, they're like, please, we need football back in Cleveland. They get an expansion team, and ever since, they have been the worst team. They have averaged 5 wins a season the last 30 years. It's like, God, being a Cleveland fan. And I, you know what I said? Like, I saw Cleveland on my road trip, and the Indians ballpark, very beautiful. Even the Brown Stadium, very nice stadium. But like Cleveland, it is hell. And I lived in Arizona, and I can say that Cleveland has it way worse than Arizona because they care so strongly that it's just cruel that the sports gods just hate the city of Cleveland so much.
Yeah, the Cardinals fans don't even care. They're like, oh, yeah, I guess.
They don't.
Most
The
of
thing
them are
about the
soccer
Cardinals
fans.
The Cardinals fans don't exist. They don't exist. Nobody's a Cardinals fan. Cleveland. If you go to Cleveland, there's somebody rocking a Browns hat, and they're like, "Oh, I remember when Ernest Byer fumbled it on the 1-yard line in the '80s." In the '80s is what they're talking about. The people who witnessed that game as a child are now on the verge of collecting Social Security. Like, that's how long it's been since the Browns were good. And the one time that they were good, which was with Baker Mayfield, and they beat the Steelers and nearly beat the Chiefs, what do they do immediately after? Trade for a serial rapist, give him the longest contract, and back to the Cleveland Browns. Cleveland Browns, we haven't even done the worst top 5 yet this year, but I'm going to put them there at number 1 immediately.
At number 1, entering the season, you have a sneak peek there, and we're coming up on 2 weeks until that segment is returning here. But yeah, that's the Cleveland Browns. We didn't think we'd spend that much time, but honestly, that was a lot of pent up energy, and I feel better. Don't you feel better now that you got all of
Just
that out in the open?
yeah, I just hate the Cleveland Browns. I'm not even a fan, but the city of Cleveland has witnessed LeBron leaving twice. They have witnessed the Indians, who have been a consistently good team their entire tenure. They haven't won a World Series since the 40s. Be one strike away from a World Series twice, and it has ended on a walk-off both times. So like, no matter where you are in Cleveland, no matter how you feel, they just Cleveland fans have just consistently just had it the worst. And I feel for them. I really do. Except for the Browns front office. They deserve everything
The Browns
that goes
fans
their way.
care though. Like the Browns fans, Cavaliers fans, like Cleveland is a good city. It's a hardworking city. Used to be like a very blue collar town. Has a good Midwestern feel and some good aspects to it. But yeah, there's a reason why the city is called the Mistake on the Lake.
Yeah, that is unfortunate. But you know what? We stay in Ohio for our next team. A team that isn't that far removed from a Super Bowl, but those years are starting to look behind us a little bit. That being said, Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, some newly added players on defense. They have Boye Mafe that they stole from the Seahawks. They have Dexter Lawrence adding to the mix now. Miles Murphy's a year older now. So their defense, which was god awful last year, is now looking a little bit better. Offensive line, we'll see if it's better this year. But when I say the Bengals in 2026, how do you feel about this?
I'm terrified whenever I think about the Cincinnati Bengals. Anytime I think about the Bengals, I get anxiety because this is a team that added Dexter Lawrence, as you mentioned before. They have Jonathan Allen now, Boye Mafe, and Brian Cook. But there is the issue of Joe Burrow being banged up. It seems like his whole career now, he's been a magnet for injuries. They haven't been able to get the offensive line right. But theoretically this year, I think they should be one of the dark horse favorites to get to the Super Bowl. I think they'd have a strong chance in the AFC if their entire team is healthy, but this team, if I had to sum up in a word, they just give me anxiety anytime I think about Cincinnati because you think about the potential and then you also start thinking of every single thing that has gone wrong, which indicates it probably will go wrong because Joe Burrow just hasn't been able to stay on the field here. But I will pick this assuming Joe Burrow is going to be healthy here. But I think healthy, obviously a Super Bowl contender, especially adding Boye Mafe and some other talent on defense here. But still, man, we have Jamar Chase getting banged up in training camp. So it's already starting to think about it. So they really do remind you of the San Francisco 49ers. It's unfortunate because Joe Burrow should be in the conversation for best quarterback in the league, but I'm getting to the point with him, I can't even put him in the top 5 anymore if he gets injured this year. Like top 5 when he's playing, sure, but if I can't rely on you, what's the point?
Yeah, and luckily Jamar Chase looks to be good, but if it's already starting now, the other problem with the Bengals is every year post Super Bowl they don't wake up until November. So hopefully, we can see them do it this year and wake up, before November, and they're looking at 1-7 again. We'll kick it off. They start off in Tampa. They take on Baker Mayfield and the Bucks. So yeah, week 1. How does this start?
And you think of I've been seeing a lot of highlights for this game come up when the Bengals played them the last time, and the Bengals were down in this game, and then Joe Burrow ended the last 20 minutes on 4 touchdown drives, and it reminds you of how awesome the Cincinnati Bengals can be. But they're going to Tampa Bay in week 1. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers have been September Warriors, so I will have the Bengals falling to Tampa.
And let's not forget they also lost to the 3-14 Patriots one year as well, scoring 10 points. So their offense doesn't wake up in September, and it doesn't get any better when they go to Houston in week 2.
Yeah, I think that's a tough matchup for them. Houston also doesn't really wake up that early and has struggled early on. Because remember, last season they started pretty poorly, ended on a major winning streak. So this is kind of the battle of two teams here. And I'm going to go with the offense that I trust more in this one. And I think Cincinnati's going to win.
This could be like a 16-14 game. Like this just is probably a win, but not a win you feel proud of.
This is
If I know
very Monday
Cincinnati.
Night Football coded.
Yes, and it is luckily a 1 o'clock slate game. Thank goodness. But they go to Pittsburgh to take on the Steelers week 3,
And I had
which
the
I think
Steelers
you had the Steelers.
winning the first time. Yep. So they go 1-2. So we're on track here for Cincinnati.
And then week 4, they host Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars.
And I think Jacksonville wins that one.
So
Yeah, I'll
yet
take
again they start
Jacksonville to win
1-3.
that.
So yet again they start 1-3 in September. And this is actually early October that occurs. So maybe things turn around because their schedule gets a lot easier when they take on the Dolphins in week 5.
Oh yeah, we're so back. Joe Burrow throws for potentially 550 yards.
That would be a record. I hope to see it. Week 6 they have a bye, so early bye this year.
Don't love it.
And then they take on the Ravens week 7 at 1 o'clock.
And I think they have a better chance of beating the Ravens earlier in the season because it may take until a little over half the year to get used to a new head coach with Jesse Minter being there. So I do think they beat the Ravens the first time and move to 500.
All right. And then week 8 they take on the Titans.
I heard a joke the other day, and then someone said the Tennessee Titans. Everyone laughed. Thought it was really funny.
Yeah, and I got a giggle there as well. Now, week 9, they are going overseas. I'm going to see where they are going internationally, but they are going and taking on the Falcons, and it looks like it's in Madrid.
And I will take the Bengals to win that one. Last time the Falcons went overseas, Jonathan Taylor rushed for 200 yards last year.
Yeah,
One of the last
I think it was
great
250.
Colts games. Yeah. So I think
it was
Jamar
like
Chase
250.
could potentially go for a 200 game in this one as well.
Which we've seen him do that several times, 200-yard games. So very possible there. Week 10, you had this is them facing the Steelers. You had them splitting. So I believe week 1, first time the Steelers won. It's the last time you had the Bengals. So week 10, you have them beating the Steelers again.
Yep, 6-3.
So they're looking at 6-3. So that's a pretty good record there. Week 11 on Monday Night Football, they're actually starting at 8-14 because 8-15, the number 5 was taken. So taking on JD5. JD5, please don't sue us. We do not make enough money to support legal fees. But Commanders and Bengals.
Yeah, and I think they should beat the Commanders. Last time these two teams played, it was a fun matchup. So I think we should get that again. But I think the Bengals defense will be a little bit better this time, and Jaden Daniels won't score every single time that he touches the ball.
Hopefully not. But they go and host the Saints the following week.
And I think they slip up a little bit there, and the Saints are able to sneak one off of them.
All right, so they have now fallen for the first time. They had looks like this was a 5-game winning streak they were on previously. That is now snapped, but luckily for them, they face the Browns.
Yeah, and I think they beat Cleveland. You had every AFC North team sweeping Cleveland, so I will stick with that. They moved to 8-4.
And then this is going to be a great matchup, but 4 o'clock slate, they host Mahomes and Burrow.
And thankfully this time it's going to be J.J. Watt calling the game and not Tony Romo. And I think they fall to the Chiefs. No, I think they beat the Chiefs in this one. Yeah, I think they will. Yeah, I think their defense is good enough where they'll come out on top versus Kansas City, and their offense just has a lot more firepower if everyone is still healthy.
Yeah, I saw a stat earlier that the Chiefs are the only team in the last 3 years to not have a 1,000-yard rusher or a 1,000-yard receiver, which I
Oh,
thought was kind of surprising, but kind of makes sense if you think about it. Now, this kind of depends on the previous week, but week 15 they go to Carolina.
Yeah, and I think they lose to the Panthers. Sometimes they have some games where they struggle here. The Panthers against the Rams last year played Super Bowl quality football. So I think the team that are going to do that against next year is going to be Cincinnati, and then the Bengals fall to the Panthers.
All right. And then staying on the road, this is a flex game. We'll see where it ends up being or what time, but they host or they go to Indianapolis to take on the Colts.
Yeah, and I think they beat the Colts in that matchup.
All right. And then you had mentioned they beat the Ravens in week 7. They now take on the Ravens in week 17. Thursday night football, Christmas or New Year's Eve. Lamar versus Joe Burrow.
Yeah, I think the Ravens win that one.
Then they end the season taking on Dylan Gabriel, taking on Shador, Deshaun Watson, whoever it may be, week 18.
And I think they go 11-6. And I think that's fair if Joe Burrow is fully healthy. There's some wins early on. Maybe they lose to Houston there, but listening to the schedule, I think 11-6, between 10 to 12 wins, I think should be right on course for the Cincinnati Bengals if Joe Burrow plays a full season, especially adding Dexter Lawrence, Boye Mafe, Jonathan Allen, and Brian Cook at safety. And then if you hit on a few players in the draft, maybe you get another stud on defense. Then you have some real quality NFL players there, let alone how you have, you have the Ukrainian Rocket at wide receiver as well with Yoshi Baum. And then you also now have your star running back who's been playing electric for you the past few years. And then you still have probably the best wide receiver duo in the league with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase. So I do think 11-6, everyone is healthy, is fair for this team, especially they just have their moments where you scratch your head at them. But do you think that's fair?
I think it's fair because I'm looking at their schedule and they have a third place schedule, if I'm not mistaken. I think, the Steelers had jumped them. So
It's
I
not
think
hard.
it's not really a hard schedule. Like you have the Dolphins in there, you have the Browns twice, and then you also have like the Colts, the Panthers in there as well, and the Falcons. So those alone should bring you to 7 or 8 wins, assuming you win all those games. Plus some of these tougher games too, like Kansas City. Burrow historically has played very well against him, probably better than any other quarterback in the league, honestly. Lamar, those are always great battles too. So I think it's fair, and Vegas agrees with you. It started out when they first set the lines in February; they were at 9.5, but a lot of the sharks, they would say, have started to buy into the Bengals like you have, and it's now since moved to 10.5, and a lot of people are betting on the over. So we're not
I'm
gambling
moving the
men,
market.
knock on wood, but if we were, Vegas agrees with us. So a lot of people taking the over on the Bengals. They're optimistic that they turn things around this year.
Yeah, there you have it. Brickyard moving the market. We don't look at the over under before picking these, just so we have a fresh idea in our mind, just organically what they think. And last week I was pretty spot on with Vegas. I think we were for usually 3 out of the 4 teams were pretty spot on with Vegas here. And then this one for Cincinnati, I was over with the Steelers, over with the Bengals here, which leaves us with the Baltimore Ravens. And the Ravens had the kind of the story is losing John Harbaugh. You hired Jesse Minter, who is a great defensive coordinator. But also, you have the whole saga with Max Crosby, and they realized that they could get a pass rusher to the same level and Trey Hendrickson without having to give up all of that draft capital to acquire Max Crosby. So there was that whole controversy here. And then you also lost Tyler Linderbaum and Isaiah Likely and fullback Patrick Ricard, who had been a key piece to that team as well. So you have a couple losses there that are big, but you also add Trey Hendrickson. You bring in Jalen Hawkins, and then you also have John Simpson to help restructure the line.
Yeah, the thing with the Ravens is that I look at their defense and they got a lot of really nice players there. Like Roquan Smith is there, Trey Hendrickson's added to the fold. They still have the Marlon Humphreys, the Kyle Hamiltons of the world. On paper, the Ravens are the best team in the division, front to back. Bengals have gotten a lot better. I would put the Bengals there too, but my biggest concern for them is the receiver core, which seems to always be the case. I like Zay Flowers. I don't necessarily love Zay Flowers as a number one. Rashad Bateman is a solid receiver, but I wouldn't consider him a number two. And then after that, the receiver core gets very thin. So my main concern with the Ravens is their offense, surprisingly. Derrick Henry, I'm not going to say like I do every year. I'm not going to jinx myself because every year I'm wrong. But Derrick Henry, each year, he gets the 1 year older, and eventually I'll be right, just like Max Kellerman was with Brady. But 1,600 yards last year. I'm not going to even say it there. I'm just going to nip it in the bud. Lamar Jackson's a year older. So I feel like the biggest concern I have is more or less with the offense than with the defense. Jesse Minter had the Chargers with the top 5 defense statistically last year, so I think their defense will be great. Lamar Jackson's still a top 5 quarterback, so I expect this team to win the division based on my early thoughts.
Okay. Yeah, I think I would also be concerned with the health of Lamar Jackson. He's someone who's been inconsistent in and out of the lineup the past few years here, so I do think that would be cause to pause. But we are picking this like everyone is going to be healthy here. But I do think, I don't know, overall, like you go over these two teams, I might think Cincinnati is better. But let's go over Baltimore's schedule and see if you feel the same way based off of their opponents here. And then week 1, they start out in Indianapolis against the Colts and Daniel Jones.
Yeah, I'm going to take them beating the Colts.
All right. Jesse Minter gets his first win as an NFL head coach, and then they host the New Orleans Saints.
And you know what? I do think that the first couple of weeks, it'll take them a while to get going. This Saints team, I think, is going to surprise a lot of people. So I'm actually going to have the Saints upsetting them in this game.
All right, I like it. And then the next week, we have America's Game of the Week in Dallas. They are taking on the Cowboys at 425.
I'll tell you what, I'm actually probably higher on the Cowboys than I've maybe ever been, at least over the last 5 years. They got a lot of firepower on offense, and I do think this Ravens defense is going to be very good moving forward, but CeeDee Lamb, Jake Ferguson, George Pickens, Javonte Williams, Dak, I'm going to take the Cowboys to upset them here.
And don't worry, because their schedule gets pretty easy over the next 3 weeks. They host the Tennessee Titans.
And that's a win.
Right, so now they're 2-2, keeping pace with the Cincinnati Bengals there. And then after that, they go to Atlanta to face the Falcons.
Yep, and I think they beat the Falcons.
And then they go to Cleveland to face the Browns. We all know how you feel about that, but any thoughts?
Yeah, mercy rule, hopefully.
And then after that, they go and host the Cincinnati Bengals.
And I'm going to stay with you. I do think the Bengals will beat them early, and then later in the season, I can see Lamar turning things around and beating them again. So I'm going to go with the same mindset there with the Bengals.
All right, so they go 4-3, and now them and the Bengals are both 4-3, sitting atop the division. And Pittsburgh is also 4-3 at that point in the season, with where we had it.
But not the Browns.
Not the Browns. The Browns are not good. And then after that, they go to Buffalo to face the Bills. Do we remember what happened last time?
Actually, let's remind the audience what did happen last time.
The Ravens were up by a lot, and then Josh Allen put on his cape and came back from a lot down on Sunday Night Football, the first week of the year.
Yeah, I mean, now we don't have John Harbaugh there, so maybe it was John Harbaugh's fault. So, you know what? I will say I'm looking at this game, and this is, for some reason, a 1 o'clock game. Why? I don't understand when you have these two superstars going head-to-head, why you wouldn't just why wouldn't you just play this on primetime? But whatever. What do I know as a fan? But I do think if they fall to Joe Burrow, I do think he beats Josh Allen the next week. So I do think he rebounds in a great game.
All right, so they go 5-3 Turns out John Harbaugh was the problem. And then they host the Jacksonville Jaguars.
This is the day before my birthday, before I head to Buffalo to greet Josh Allen. I do think they beat the Jaguars. Primetime Lamar, I feel pretty confident that he's going to win that more times out of, more than not.
And then after that, they have another primetime game, and they host the Los Angeles Chargers.
Yeah, and again, like primetime Lamar, it's going to be hard for me to bet against him. I do think that it's going to be a great game. I think that'll be a fun game to watch, but I'll take them beating the Chargers.
All right, and then on a coin flip, they go to Carolina and play the Panthers.
Yeah, and honestly, this could be a game that maybe sneaks up on them, but I still think they pull up and still beat the Panthers.
All right, so they're 8-3, looking very good now atop the division, and then they go to Houston to face the Texans.
And this is where I do think they've strung some wins together. They're feeling good. They beat Josh Allen. They beat Trevor Lawrence, Justin Herbert. And now I feel like with how good that Texans defense is, I do think they give Lamar trouble like they have in the past. I will take the Texans to win that game.
All right, Texans win that game, and then they host the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
And it's December. I still think as long as everyone's healthy that this team is the better team. So I will take them beating Tampa.
All right, so they're 9-4 now, and then they go to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. I had the Steelers beating them losing to them the first time and beating them the second time. Do you still agree with that?
Yeah, I'll do the same with the Steelers. I do think they beat them the first time. Second time, maybe they're resting starters by then.
All right, so they are 10-4, and then they go to Cleveland potentially to clinch the division.
Yeah, we all know how that's gonna go.
So they're 11-4, and have a showdown against Cincinnati potentially for the division here. And this is on Thursday Night Football, which has not gone well for Joe Burrow against the Ravens.
Yeah, and you had the Bengals losing to them the second time around, and I feel the same. So I do think, especially on primetime, I'm going to vote for Lamar to pull through.
All right, so they're 12-4, have clinched their division, and what do you know? The Steelers get to play a meaningless game in Baltimore again after the Baltimore Ravens have wrapped up the division. Wow, it's almost like history repeats itself. It's crazy.
Every year. It happens every year, and we always are surprised every year, but yet it's always the same outcome. Yeah, it's poetic. And honestly, I think this division, Ravens are 12-5, Bengals are 11-6. The Steelers are 10-7, and then have you been seeing these clips online where it's like reading the scripts and it's just like the Browns reading their script for 2025, and it's just like Pearl Harbor, the World Trade. It's like the most tragic things. Like this is how it is in this division. This is one of the best divisions in the NFL. You have 3 Hall of Famers and then the Browns at this point. Like it's inevitable. And 3-14, maybe I wasn't harsh enough. I think they might be worse. They have a rough schedule, and they have nothing going for them.
The Browns get their script, and then it's just Baker Mayfield is Ryan Gosling at the end of La La Land with a drink. Like, sorry, it didn't work out.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, we miss you. Come home, the kids miss you.
But that is the North here. So we have the Ravens at 12-5, and I believe I saw they were the overwhelming favorite. What is the Ravens over under for next year?
I'll get that right here. Ravens are 11.5 across all boards.
Right on it there. And yeah, I did see they're the overwhelming favorite, so it'll be a good division. It's really going to come down to health, though. The health of Aaron Rodgers, the health of Joe Burrow, and Lamar Jackson, because all of them do give you some cause to pause with what has happened in recent memory. But we have the Ravens finishing at the top at 12-5. The Bengals finishing at 11-6. The Steelers going 10-7, and the Browns at 3-14. So let us know if you disagree with that. What would you change record-wise? Would you change the order at all? Do you think Cincinnati's going to win the division? And do you think Cincinnati can go far as a wild card team next year. Let us know what you think in the comments. But that has been the AFC North here. Speaking of Cleveland, um, James Harden now officially becomes the biggest thief in sports history. And credit to James Harden because you had mentioned you sent me his contract with Cleveland. I'm like, wow, that's a lot of money. And before the show, I didn't realize he's 38 years old and the Cavaliers are giving him $141 million. Did I hear that correctly? For James Harden?
Let me double check his contract. I think it's about at least 100. Let me look at his new contract. But James Harden, still a very good player, by the way. Still very effective for them. But his new deal is
$97 million fully guaranteed.
97 million, and there's a trade kicker in there. So if they trade him, he's going to make more money. This contract also has him surpassing 500 million in career earnings, not even including his sponsorships, which is it's ridiculous. And then there's also a player option for year 41 for James Harden. James Harden's birthday, by the way, he will be turning 38 tomorrow. So when you're listening to this podcast, just know that it's James Harden's birthday. Please go to a local strip club and have your jersey retired in honor of Mr. James Harden, the beard, as they say.
His Adidas contract is also ridiculous. It's a 13-year, $200 million endorsement deal from 2015 to 2028. So he still has 2 years left, and it pays roughly $15.38 million per year. On top of his NBA earnings that you mentioned, which was over $500 million, and now he's actually been a little bit entrepreneurial. I don't know if you heard, but he opened up I believe he has the restaurant called the Lucky Moose, and he opened one of those up in Arizona recently, and then he owns another restaurant in Houston. I was watching a Food Network show, and his primary executive chef that he uses was doing some competitions there, but he owns like some restaurants already. He's been entrepreneurial, and honestly, like, people talk about this is terrible for Cleveland, why would you give him this much money? But credit to James Harden for making this much money throughout his career. I mean, he's close to almost $1 billion in revenue now, and most of that time was spent in Texas too, where he was earning most of it income tax free for over half his career.
Yeah. Honestly, like, say what you will about James Harden. We together are James Harden defenders, and I always will be. We love James Harden. I can say this 3-year deal, though, I would say there's probably a 90% chance he doesn't finish his career in Cleveland. So he's probably going to make even more money after they trade him. But at the end of the day, like, he's still a very good player for them. He's definitely not the James Harden of old, naturally, as a 38-year-old player. But, I mean, he's going to be getting paid $30+ million even into his 40s. And his play has aged relatively gracefully, so I feel like even then he might still get another bag if he even wants to keep playing. So, I mean, credit to James Harden. He's one of those guys that I'd love to see him win a ring, but, I mean, obviously he's a Hall of Famer there, but $500 million that he's earned just in NBA money, on top of his Adidas deal, on top of all of his other sponsorships as well. Like, James Harden he might not be the GOAT of the NBA, but he's the GOAT of securing his money no matter where he goes. And also getting out of a place he doesn't want to go. So those are the two things he'll be remembered for in my mind.
Yeah, I think people spend too much time not appreciating the NBA talent we have in front of us, and it's unfortunate where there's so much hyper focus on winning an NBA championship where people can seemingly sit back and just focus on what James Harden was doing throughout his career and how impressive it was. And similar in the also sense of Russell Westbrook, who retired recently, who was James Harden's peer in Oklahoma City, and then he retires, and all his prime is remembered for is people making fun of him for the most part. He was one of the most entertaining players to watch, but you just think of people like Colin Cowherd saying, oh, this is a guy you can never win with. I can't win a title with him. Like, who cares? Like, look at a Russell Westbrook dunk highlight. look at his season where he averaged a triple-double and how impressive that was. People make fun of Russell Westbrook and then turn around and act like Tracy McGrady wasn't a perpetual loser as well. But like Russell Westbrook retired recently, also one of the most impressive players in the league, and I felt like throughout his prime it was too much focus on the negative aspects. Obviously, he's going to have flaws to his game. Not everyone can take a team far on their own in the playoffs, but what he was sustaining in the regular season for 82 games is the NBA is a business and it is show business. And at the end of the day, Russell Westbrook was someone who showed up and played hard every single game and wasn't going to take rest or load manage. And he always showed up and showed out for the fans in the prime of his career where he was giving it 100%, and I think that's how Russell Westbrook should be remembered, is for those entertaining dunks and being a showman in the NBA in a time where not a lot of players are interested in the regular season. You always knew he was going to try his best.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Russell Westbrook, he personally is one of my all-time favorite players in the NBA. I feel like I would shout out like Kobe Bryant, Kevin Garnett. Those are players that I grew up with as well. In modern day NBA, I would put someone like a Jason Tatum in there as well. But Russell Westbrook's just one of those guys. Rajon Rondo I'd nominate as well. But for Russell Westbrook, what he accomplished, especially post the breakup with Kevin Durant, the fact that he took a team that was one win away from the NBA Finals, and the fact that he, in after the fact of whatever happened with him and Kevin Durant, the fact that he was able to average a triple-double the following season, which was something that nobody in the NBA. You look at all these different past highlights prior to that, saying that it's completely impossible. Nobody's ever going to average a triple-double over 82 seasons. And then he proceeds to do it, average a triple-double over 4 seasons, is ridiculous. His triple-double record as well, 182 career triple-doubles as well. Still doing a triple-double with the Kings his last year as well. Like, he was just an absolute freak of nature. He was physical. He's probably the best rebounding point guard of all time at this point. And then just consistently 25 points, 10 rebounds, 10 assists, facilitator, a great teammate. A lot of people who played for him will vouch for him as well. Like, he was just a pure NBA scorer, pure NBA energy, explosive. I feel like point guard wise, he might be the most explosive point guard in his prime. You could compare him with pretty much anybody. I feel like comparison-wise, a lot of people will compare him to Allen Iverson, and I would put him over Allen Iverson in my mind all time if I had to. It's a shame he never got a ring, but like I said, one of my all-time favorite players. What he accomplished, averaging a triple-double, should be remembered forever, and we should appreciate him in retrospect more than we appreciated him when he actually was playing. Poor shooting, whatever it may be. He's an all-time great point guard, and he should be a top 5 point guard of all time, or at least in the top 10.
Yeah, especially some of those Spurs series where it's him and Kevin Durant versus Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, Manu Ginobili. Some really impressive showings in the Western Conference, and he was a handful even on his own to deal with. I mean, it was a tough seeing that, and then he had the whole Paul George situation, but Russell Westbrook has retired, will always be remembered though, and hopefully he also normalized the triple-double where he did it and then Jokic did it repeatedly, where now it isn't even a qualifier for MVP anymore. Like, well, we already gave it to Russell Westbrook. We've given Jokic the MVP too many times. So now, like, the triple-double isn't even that impressive, where before Russell Westbrook did it, it was unheard of. But, oh my goodness, a triple-double? LeBron James hasn't even done that. And now Jokic took that, and then this is what I do. I average a near triple-double every single season. And now the NBA media doesn't even care anymore. But he was the first person to normalize it. And he made it, as a feat, he made it seem not impressive, where before it'd just be someone like Rajon Rondo, or you'd have like a Jason Kidd triple-double, but he'd only get you 15 points when he did it.
Yeah, and you would see Russell Westbrook triple-doubles of 40 points, 12 assists, 15 rebounds. Like, the peak of Russell Westbrook, his triple-doubles were just completely insane. I'm glad he got to win an MVP. I wish I got to see him make it to another finals without Kevin Durant and James Harden. Honestly, that team that made it to the finals against the Heat, probably I wish won the finals so that they all could have had a ring together. Probably a totally different timeline if we do see that in the NBA. But he'll go down as one of the greatest players to never win a ring. He should go down as an all-time point guard and Mr. Triple Double. Even though most likely by the end of next year, Nikola Jokic will have more triple doubles than him, I still think we should consider him as the Mr. Triple Double man and a guy that I hope is remembered fondly. And that's all I can ask for Russell Westbrook.
But that is Russell Westbrook, James Harden, the AFC North preview. We went over some headlines, some funny headlines, some serious headlines, and now it is time for the time of the show where we ask, what have you been watching or listening to this week?
Yes, so still kind of settling into the move, but me and the lady have been planning for a while to watch the B movie with some adult vitamins and really enjoy that feature film that was released in 2007. And you know what? I had my crash out earlier about the Browns, but the older I get, like, I'll rewatch certain movies and be like, you know what? That person that's the villain actually makes a lot of sense. I can use a few examples. Like, for example, like one of my favorite movies, Revenge of the Sith. Anakin Skywalker turning to the dark side. Completely valid. I've talked about it on the show. I won't bore you again. And then, like, we talk about, like, Thanos. I'm on Thanos' side when it comes to the villain. The villain in this movie, in the B movie, is so essentially, just I'll rewind for a second. Barry B is trying to find his career. He graduates from B high school, essentially, and he doesn't want to go into the worker business like every other B does. He escapes and meets this lovely woman that you see on one of those pictures there, and essentially falls in love with this woman. And her husband, played by Patrick Warburton, also Joe Swanson, also a number of other people that you know and love. His character is basically saying, like, you're talking to a fucking bee. The entire movie, he's like, what are we talking about here? Like, you're befriending a bee. Like, this is an average reaction. And as a kid, like, I don't know, I didn't really pay attention enough, or maybe I was just a dumb kid just watching it, not thinking. But looking back, like, he's in the right. He's the hero. He's the one that's like, no, like, put the bee back in the beehive. Like, get him out of here, basically. And the movie, I think, Jerry Seinfeld is producing it, and so they obviously know what they're doing when they're doing it. But this movie, watching it, he's freaking out. He's like, hey, you're in love with a bee. Like, what are you talking about? You're in love with a fucking bee. So my biggest reaction to this movie is, like, sometimes the villain of a movie actually is the person in the right. And this movie, still very funny, still a good time. Definitely a highly quotable, memeable movie. But yeah, I would say, like, my takeaway from that movie is that in some cases, the villain's right. And Ken in this movie, or Joe Swanson to many, is absolutely in the right. Why is your wife in love with a bee? I mean, that's a pretty obvious thing to not be in love with. So I guess that's kind of my thoughts there. Have you seen the Bee movie?
I have seen it once a while ago, and I can't tell you that I've had a strong urge to rewatch it. But it is one of those movies I've always thought of as kind of a meme. So it looks like on Rotten Tomatoes, it's pretty mixed, where it's a 53 audience score, 49 critic score. So maybe it's time to rewatch it, but I don't know if do you think it's worth rewatching again, or is it one of those movies where
I
you
think
could have
it's
lived
worth a
without it?
rewatch. I think it's a good rewatch. I don't think it should be a priority to rewatch it, but if you see it across your screen, I think if you were to watch it, you would enjoy it. That's what I would say about it. It is an enjoyable watch. It's funny. It's a little ridiculous, but it's just like, yeah, it's a movie that you probably shouldn't watch sober. I'll say that.
Yeah, because you mentioning like the villain sometimes being the good guy. Everyone is talking and complaining about flock cameras going up now, but remember how at the end of The Dark Knight, Batman literally taps into every single device to find the Joker, and people are like, obviously he has to do that to find the Joker. Am I right? And now the same people who are like, oh, well, Batman can do that. Oh, so it's not an issue. So it's an issue now, but Batman in that movie, he was totally in the right to do it. And he had that kind of moral dilemma where Alfred is telling him, hey, I don't think this is right. And you had that conversation and conflict, but Batman decides to eventually tap into what their version of a bunch of flock cameras would be, or essentially tapping into every single person's cell phone to locate the Joker.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like, that's a scenario where the good guy is not the good guy in the movie, but it's portrayed as such. Um, yeah, it's just it's strange. But this movie, I don't think it's on Netflix anymore. I think it's coming off. I think that's why we watched it with that urgency. But I think if you and your lady were to watch it, I think you would enjoy it. I think it's a funny movie. I don't know how long it's been since you saw it, but I've seen it now recently, so I probably won't see it again for another 10 years. It's kind of a movie that you watch in like 10-year intervals if you rewatch it at all. I hadn't seen it in a long time, so I was due for it. But if you haven't seen it in a while, I do think you'd watch it and get a good laugh.
Yeah. Yeah, it's fun going back and rewatching a kid's movie once in a while when you're in the mood just for something stupid to watch. So I'll definitely have to go back and check that one out eventually. But I do remember, I don't think I like felt anything strongly when I watched it when I was a kid though. I think like I kind of watched it and was like that was okay when I was a kid. I don't think
I
I
think it's
got it.
better as an adult. It's better as an adult than it is as a kid, I would say. Because I had the same feeling when I saw it. I'm like, this movie's fine. And then it became a massive meme for a while where like they had like t-shirts with the whole movie script on it. Nowadays, like
You like
rewatching it, now
jazz?
that the meme has died out, it's like it's a good watch. It's a fun movie. Um, I don't think it's going to win any major awards. I don't think it's going to be considered one of the best of all time, but it is a funny animated movie.
Wow. Yeah,
But
that
yeah,
is the B movie, so that's pretty exciting. Anything else you listened to or watched that week, or just the B movie?
yeah. Other than that, I've been like watching The Office with the lady. I'm only on season one, but Michael Scott. I know this isn't really a hot take. I feel like everyone on the internet or every average white person will say the same, but Michael Scott's a great TV character. He's hilarious. It's a great time to watch. Um, Not really in love with the Jim and Pam arc so far. I feel like Pam is kind of mid, and I feel like Jim's a good character, but other than that, I've been watching The Office. Trying to get back into some games. I'm probably going to buy Madden pretty soon because it just came out, so we'll see how that is. But still kind of getting acclimated. I've just been really busy, so that's kind of really all I've been able to watch. Otherwise,
Yeah, busy is definitely good here. I went and I played a short game, but I played Mafia Definitive Edition, and I believe this is a remake of the first Mafia game. Um, Been a while. I was just looking for a good atmosphere and story. We ended up playing this pretty much all the way through in 2 weekends. It's only about a 10 to 12 hour story, and this is a Mafia game where they rebuilt the 2002 version all the way up from the ground up, and you follow this cab driver named Tommy, and he gets involved with this mob family, the Salieri family, and you follow him kind of going from a cab driver the first time, and the game is told from the perspective of him telling the story to a detective just to see if he can help his family. So it is a really fun game. Pretty much every mission is a shootout, which is always good, but they put a lot of thought into the cars in this one. It's a really good atmosphere, and if you just want a good story to play where you don't necessarily need a great I would say open world to just mess around in. I'd say if you just want a good, solid, short, focused story, this game was definitely really fun, and it was a good introduction into the franchise for me. I heard the first two are good. people don't really love what they did after that, but I thought atmospherically very pleasing game. I like the setting of it being in the 1930s, especially listening to the radio. Having like the jazz on was fun, and then you're kind of heading into World War II, so you see some newspapers about Hitler, and then you have some other news about World War II about should the U.S. get involved or should we let European affairs be European affairs in it. So I thought just the whole setting of the game during Prohibition was really interesting overall. So if you're a fan of mob movies, like you don't get a happy ending in it. It's been out for a while. I won't spoil it, but you definitely don't get a happy ending, and you get some solid character moments as the game is coming to an end.
Yeah, I I haven't played Mafia 1, but I've played Mafia 2. What I really like about that, I guess, system or that franchise is like if you're a big fan of mafia movies, which recently I watched The Godfather within the last year. I've seen some of the other mob movies of late, so it's kind of fresh in my brain. So playing a game that's kind of like a GTA style, but in the mafia setting, for some reason it's just extremely pleasing. Um, I think if you enjoyed Mafia 1, I know Mafia 2, I think, is the one that they consider the better of just the franchise in general. That one's, I think, set in the 50s. Um, but both are really great. The problem with Mafia 3 is that they go from like mob style, like mafia movie style to it's set in like the 70s and your guy's like a Cuban immigrant that basically like I don't know. It's just not the same. It's not the same aesthetic. It's kind of like Vietnam style, and it kind of does away with like the traditional mafia of like the 30s to really 60s. So I guess that's kind of people's gripe there. Still a fun play, but it felt more like a Watch Dogs than it did like a mafia styled GTA, which I think is what the first two are kind of geared around as. Still can have fun fucking around, but story wide I think those two are the strongest for sure.
Do you like the open world better in that one? Because I think for a Mafia franchise, the one I played could have benefited from some more fun things to do, and they could have made like the world a little bit more interesting to interact with when you're not playing the story. So I do think if they're trying to go into that direction and be more like a Watch Dogs or GTA, for me that would be fine. But it seemed like they just sacrificed the story for that, and then it was a little bit jarring for the setting because it looks like after that one they released Mafia Old Country, which is in 1900s Italy, which looks interesting to me.
Yeah, that could be interesting. Mafia 2 is definitely like open world. Like I remember for the longest time they had like the demo for it, which is where I played a lot of it at first. And you have to essentially like perform a hit on somebody, but while you're doing so, you can kind of interact with the world. There's this like classic, essentially like newspaper guy that you can fuck with. There's people walking around. You can like go into people's houses. Like there's definitely some cool stuff in Mafia 2 that if you want the more open world style, that Mafia 2 is probably going to scratch that itch for you. I can't speak for the old country game, but that could be a good, I guess, plot there, but Mafia 2 is a great game. I think for the 2010s open world games, it's one of the better ones. I would put it above some of the Watch Dogs, although it's kind of a different game in that regard. But if you want to play another Mafia game, I think Mafia 2 would be a good. I don't think you'll regret getting Mafia 2.
Yeah, I definitely check it out if it's available. The one I played, I downloaded it because I saw they had just updated it to 60 FPS, and it was just one of those games I had gotten for free
Hmm.
with the basic PlayStation like monthly free games. So it was one of the two free games. So I just had it, and I'm like, okay, that looks pretty cool. I might as well check it out. And the graphics look very good. Definitely some funny glitches in that game. Like you get out of the car and you phase right through a wall. Or one point we drove like through the bridge where it's just like concrete, and then your car's going under it. So that was interesting, and I'm excited potentially for the new one because it sounds like they're going to be doing a new game set in the 70s in Vegas. So if you like the movie Casino, you might be a fan of that game.
Yeah, they're making a set of Mafia 4 that they're doing.
Yeah, so I believe it would just be a new game, and then they would be set in the 70s.
Yeah, I'm in for that. Yeah, I'm a fan of that. I feel like as long as they move away from like Vietnam, and if they go in the Vegas setting, especially like 70s and 80s Vegas, like vintage Vegas, then if they can pull that off right, that's a game that I'll play the crap out of, frankly.
Yeah, especially if you do it the same time as like Elvis there, or you could do it with Frank Sinatra and Martin and Tom Jones. Looks like the 70s was kind of when it started to shift a little bit corporate there, but yeah, 70s mob era game would definitely be interesting, especially if you want to do more of a GTA or Watch Dogs or Saints Row type of game. I think 70s Vegas would be the perfect setting.
I can say that your definitive edition is the same developers as Mafia 3 and Old Country. So I think they're all in all still very good. Like I think Mafia 3 is still fun, but if you wanted to check out Mafia 2, I think that you'll really like it. It's a different developer than it is with the other ones, so it's a little bit of a different change of pace. But that's a PS3 game, so it might look a little bit worse than Old Country will.
Yeah, for sure. And they just redid the definitive edition, so I will probably wait for them to do a better remaster of the second one.
Yeah, that's not a bad idea. But that is all for the show today. We covered the AFC North, updated everything on the latest in the NBA, Russell Westbrook retiring, and what we've been watching lately. Next week is our last division breakdown. We'll be breaking down the NFC North, so you won't want to miss that. And then shortly after that, we're going to be predicting week 1 of the NFL season. It is finally here. Worst top fives, best top fives will soon be back on a screen near you, so make sure to check it out. Follow our socials, but most importantly,